Good evening, councillors, officers, members of the public in attendance and our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Suzanne Newton. I'm the Mayor of Darebin City Council and the chairperson of tonight's meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's council meeting. I declare this meeting open at 6:05 p.m. This meeting is a scheduled hybrid meeting, and while we don't have any councillors online currently, it's possible Councillor Williams will join online, so we will work with that if that happens. This meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be made available on the council website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Item 2 is our acknowledgement of traditional owners. I would like to start by paying my respects and acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to elders, past and present, and I recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. I would like to introduce the councillors and senior staff who are with us this evening. Councillor Tim Lawrence, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Emily Dimitriadis, Councillor Gaetano Greco, Councillor Tom Hannon, Councillor Trent McCarthy, Councillor Lena Messina, Councillor Susan Rennie and Councillor Julie Williams is on her way. Our officers in attendance tonight are Peter Smith, the CEO, Kylie Bennett, the General Manager of Community, Enna Jampiccolo, the Acting General Manager, Customer and Corporate, Rachel Olivier, the General Manager, Infrastructure Operations and Finance, Vanessa Petrie, the General Manager, City Sustainability and Strategy, and Anthony Smith, the Acting Manager, Governance and Communications. I would also like to very much welcome Ross Millard, who's one of 2 municipal monitors announced today by the Minister for Local Government. Mr Millard, along with Ms June Anstey, have been appointed to Darebin from today until the 31st of December 2024. Item 3 is apologies. I don't have any apologies, but Councillor Williams will be with us soon. And we'll now go on to item 4, disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors and officers, are there any conflicts of interest or interest to declare? Ms Petrie.
Through you, Mayor, I have 2 conflicts, one relating to 2 Wingrove and the other to the former Reservoir Police Station, and I've previously disclosed these to the CEO. I will leave the room when they're discussed.
Thank you very much. Have we got other conflicts of interest? Councillor Rennie.
For you, Mayor, I have a conflict relating to the item on leasing and licensing for neighbourhood houses. I'll declare that when that item comes up and leave the room.
Thank you. Have we got further? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a conflict in relation to 2 Wingrove Street, and if that comes up on any of the items, I'll be exiting at that point.
Thank you. Councillor Messina.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a conflict in relation to aged care related service delivery, and I'll declare a conflict that comes up in the budget.
Thank you. Have we got any further conflicts? Councillor Rennie.
Mayor, with apologies, sorry, I also have a conflict in relation to a line item in the budget. When that line item comes up, I'll declare it and leave the room.
Thank you. Have we got any other interests or... Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, Mayor Newton. I have a conflict of interest with a family member living in close residential proximity to the Norfolk Golf Course.
Thank you, councillors. Any further conflicts of interest? If anything does come up, any motion or amendment that arises and gives rise to a conflict of interest within the meeting, I do request the councillor advise me at that time. Thank you. We will now go on to item 5, the confirmation of previous minutes. Councillors, could I please have a mover for the adoption of the minutes of the council meetings on the ordinary council meeting from the 25th of March and the special council meeting from the 18th of April? That's moved by Councillor Messina. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McCarthy. I'll put that motion straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. And I will now go on to item 6, Council's occupational health and safety responsibilities. Council has an occupational health and safety responsibility to ensure anyone attending tonight's meeting feels safe, both physically and emotionally. And welcome, Councillor Williams. It's great to see everyone here this evening. I would like to remind everyone in attendance to be respectful of each other, and as outlined in our governance rules, please note the following. A councillor or any other person who addresses a meeting must do so in a courteous and respectful manner and must take direction from the chairperson whenever called on to do so. Any member of the public physically attending a meeting must not utter any offensive, indecent, insulting or objectionable items or words, including words that are racist, sexist or homophobic, or interject and gesticulate offensively in the council chamber. Silence must be preserved by the gallery at all times during a meeting, other than by a person in the gallery who is invited to address the meeting. If any member of the public engages in conduct that is improper or disorderly, the chairperson may direct that person to cease their conduct, and the person must comply with that direction. We will now move on to public question time. But councillors, I'll just check, have you got any conflicts of interests or interest to declare tonight? No, thank you. So we have allowed 30 minutes of public question time. If we exceed that time, I will ask for a procedural motion to extend question time for another 30 minutes. In line with Council's governance rules, no questions will be taken from people in the gallery unless they've been submitted by 12 noon today. You can ask 3 questions and you cannot speak for more than 2 minutes. Be mindful, this is question time, so please only ask your question. Questions relating to the notices of motion, petitions or urgent business will not be accepted in accordance with our governance rules. For a member of the public who have registered to ask a question in person, I will call your name when it's time. If I call your name and you do not respond, I will take it that you are not in the gallery and one of our officers will read the question on your behalf. The relevant general manager will then provide a response. If you are in attendance, I will invite you to come to the lectern to state your name and suburb and ask your question. Like questions will be grouped together. The first person who submitted the like question can ask their question. So I'll go to the first question, which is from Liz Landray of Thornbury, who I believe is not attending. So her question is, actually, I'll ask the question, I'll go to you for the answers. Thanks, Jodie. So question 1 from Liz is it intended that Darebin's LGBTIQA+ action plan will be put to council for adoption before the 2024 election period caretaker arrangements commence? And I'll go to Jodie for the I'll go to Kylie for the response.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Liz. Engagement for Council's LGBTIQA+ action plan was completed on the 31st of March. Officers are currently reviewing this feedback, which will assist to develop the action plan. Officers are planning to provide an update to Council on the next steps and timeframes in due course, but are using best endeavours to progress this important work as much as possible prior to Council entering the caretaker period.
Thank you. I will go on now to the next questioner, which is Carmen Laheef Jenkins of Reservoir. Carmen, are you in the audience tonight? No. Okay. Jodie, I will go to you to read the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Carmen has 2 questions. The first was a follow-up to a question that she asked at the last council meeting, which she found the response unclear, and may she kindly request council to provide in monetary terms and through a loss of activity breakdown the number of hours lost and their associated costs in relation to the special council meetings that were held in January and February. And additionally, I would like to know the number of extra consultancy hours undertaken specifically for extraordinary meetings and their associated costs.
Thank you. I'll go to Anna for the response.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Thank you for the question, Carmen. The use of special council meetings or unscheduled meetings are convened for a particular purpose or matter that cannot be conveniently dealt with at the next ordinary council meeting. The use of special council meetings is a part of normal council business. As advised at the February council meeting, the direct costs associated with running special meetings were minimal. Indirect costs included additional administrative effort to support the special meetings. And with regard to question 2, there were no consultancy hours undertaken specifically for extraordinary or special meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Our next questioner is Andrew from Kingsbury, and I'll ask Jodie to read the question, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Andrew has 1 question. The relation to proposing that the Link Park in Kingsbury be renamed Bruce Steele Memorial Park with a place for a memorial stone in recognition of Bruce Steele Kingsbury.
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for the response.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Andrew. I'm sorry to hear you haven't had a response from officers. I can share that Council doesn't have current plans to name a park in honour of Bruce Kingsbury. We've got other naming priorities that are being progressed at the moment. That said, any member of the Darebin community or group can make a naming proposal through our website, and I'll ask an officer to get in touch with you to explain how to do that if you wish to, and also the processes that we use to look at any proposals once they're received.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll go on to Nino from Reservoir, who I will go to Jodie to ask his questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Nino has 3 questions. The first is, the main entrances to Edwards Park Lake are poorly maintained, lack character and in need of a major overhaul. When will Council introduce plans to redevelop the main entrance at Edwards Street and Griffith Street, including reinstating the original wrought iron Edwards Lake sign? His second question is, when will Council introduce plans to develop and improve Edwards Lake supporting infrastructure, including construction of a boardwalk along sections of the lake for improved safety and access using environmentally friendly solutions? And thirdly, what water improvement initiatives has the Edwards Lake Task Force recommended, including aeration systems to help improve water quality and create a unique water feature and attraction for park visitors?
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for all 3 responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nino. Certainly Edwards Lake Park is a regional park. It's significant and important to Council, and we invest a lot in looking after it. This year I can share that we're renewing the garden beds and improving some of those at the main entrances. That planting and renewal will happen through winter, which is a good time of the year to plant. It will include some native planting and soil replacement. It should result in an uplift to the area. We don't have current plans to install the original wrought iron signs at the entrance. Council is considering its draft budget this evening, and there will be an opportunity for community feedback and consultation during the consultation period. I can also advise that we don't have plans for a boardwalk at Edwards Lake Park. It's not something that's been identified as a priority in that, considering everything across Darebin. And finally, in regards to water improvement initiatives, there have been investigations of aeration systems. Those investigations were done with the assistance of the Edgars Creek and Edwards Lake Task Force, and Melbourne Water has also assisted with some of the modelling for that. Improvements to the low flow wetlands have been completed instead. They'll help with purifying the water, and it's been advised as being the priority ahead of any aeration systems. Again, Council is considering its draft budget this evening, and there will be a consultation period, so we welcome any feedback.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll go to Lily's question. She has 2, and I'll go to Jodie to read the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Lily's first question is, can Council please advise what it intends to do to address and clean up the streets? The area has never presented so poorly, full of graffiti on buildings and poles and traffic signs. I've also heard that the person who cleans up this has recently had his role ended. Is this correct? And followed with, what is the process for tabling new motions? Is there a requirement or a need for them to be discussed with other councillors and community members prior to being tabled?
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for the first response.
So thank you. In regards to graffiti removal, Council's responsible for graffiti removal on Council's property and assets, but graffiti on private shops and houses is the responsibility of the owners of those properties. The graffiti that you've mentioned on traffic signs is likely to be Council's responsibility, as is graffiti on benches, footpaths, some poles, but not all poles. We have started a different approach recently. I am expecting that it will help lift cleanliness. So we're trying a new sort of place-focused blitz rather than relying on reports of graffiti. So the aim is to walk through and catch and clean up all the graffiti in an area. What that won't do is address graffiti on private properties. Again, I would mention that Council's considering its draft budget tonight. one of the things in the draft budget that Council will consider is a limited trial of some removal from private property targeted in some of the really high use areas of the city. Finally, Council hasn't ended any staff roles or reduced budget allocated with graffiti removal.
Thank you, Rachel. And I'll go to Anna for the response about tabling new motions.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Thank you for the question, Lily. In accordance with the Governance Rules 6.1, Notice of Motion Arrangements, point 3, the Council proposing a Notice of Motion must circulate draft Notice of Motion, including a brief rationale, to all councillors for information before lodging it with the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go. The next question is from Rena of Reservoir, and I'll get Jody to please read the questions.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Rena's first question is, with regards to Edward Lake Boathouse, has the restrictive covenant been removed, and will Council consider submitting the site to public tender in order to evaluate potential investment or development opportunities, including a cafe or restaurant facility? Question 2, with regards to the former Reservoir Library, which Council last year deemed a priority site for strategic assessment, what progress has been made to evaluate potential development opportunities, including scope of works and proposed timelines for the existing building and the surrounding car park? And 3, with regards to the former Reservoir Police Precinct, what was the outcome following last year's review of registrations of interest undertaken by Council, and what is the scope of works planned for this site, including proposed timelines?
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for all 3 responses.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the Edwards Lake Boathouse, those audience members who've been following this for a while will know some of this, but we've been working to have a restrictive gifting agreement removed. We have engaged a solicitor in England who's working that through at the moment, but at this point in time that restriction remains in force. Council is aiming to bring the boathouse to life as a venue or a business or for use as a community space, and it's working towards an expression of interest process, which is likely to be ready for release in the second half of 2024. In regards to the old Reservoir Library site, we've commenced investigative works towards that process of strategic assessment and potentially redevelopment. The first steps of those include analysing built form, looking at the constraints of the site, really to understand the potential development envelope and to identify options and issues. A key question this work will have to work through is whether the current planning zone should be considered for change or not. This type of project is expected to take 3 to 5 years overall. It is expected to require substantial community consultation and likely both council and state government approvals at various stages. And in regards to the former Reservoir Police Precinct, I can share that the review of registrations of interest, which council called for parties interested in leasing it, was placed on hold while we worked through the final make good of the site. That is very close to final, and we've recommenced the assessment process with the applicants. The scope of work will be worked through with the applicants, and I don't have more information about that as yet.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll go to Brian from Preston, who is attending in person. Brian, please feel free to ask your 2 questions.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Now listen, there's been 9 questions asked, you haven't answered one of them. They're questions asked of you, not of the officers, you haven't answered one of them.
Brian, would you like to ask your 2 questions?
I would. Would you mind removing the security here? I find it intimidating.
Brian, the security is here for a reason. I would like you to ask your 2 questions.
Okay, well, you answer my question, just for change. My name is Brian Sadigan. I live at 11 Scotia Street, West Preston, directly opposite Bell Primary School. I've witnessed many young parents who ride bicycles with very young children riding on a seat mounted over the rear wheel. I believe it is a practice that is hazardous to what are by any measure infants. I have two questions. Are bicycles registered to carry passengers? What is Council's policy on this practice?
Thank you, Brian. I'll go to Vanessa for those responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, Brian. And
Brian, I'd like you to take your seat. Brian, I'd like you to take your seat, please. Vanessa, would you like to answer the questions? Thank you.
thank you. And through you, Mayor, under the Road Safety Rule 246, the rider of a bicycle must not carry more persons than the bicycle is designed to carry. A single-seat bicycle with the child seat attached is designed to carry 2 people, one on the bicycle seat and one on the attached child seat. Council does not have a policy on this practice. However, Council strongly recommends all people abide by the road safety road rules.
Thank you. I'll go to Serena from Reservoir, who's not attending, and I will ask Jodie to please read the questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, from Serena. During public question time in October 2022, I inquired about an unfinished building at 1 McCartney Street, Reservoir. The building's exposed steel frame and graffiti-covered hoardings are an eyesore in the neighbourhood. The planning permit for the site was originally issued in 2010, yet 14 years later the building remains unfinished. Why did Darebin Council choose to issue yet another planning permit expiring in October 25? And why hasn't Darebin Council used its powers under Bylaw 28.2 to fine the owner of the for allowing the building to become unsightly or detrimental to the general character and amenity of the area in which it is located or dilapidated?
Thank you, Jodie. I'll go to Vanessa for the response.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the questions, Serena. For clarity, the unfinished building in question is at 1C at that address. Following the lapsing of the planning permit, a new planning permit was issued in August 2023. The delegates' report outlines the reasons for granting, and you can request a copy of this report, and I'll have an officer reach out to you to assist you with this process. Because Council has initiated enforcement proceedings under the Building Act, additional action under the local law has not been pursued at this point.
Thank you, Vanessa. Have we got Matthew Hayfield? Matthew, good to see you again. You have a question about Bill Laurie. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. My name's Matt Hayfield. I'm part of Northcote Cricket Club. I live in Alphington. It is regarding Bill Laurie Oval, so thank you for allowing me to speak. There's a dollar figure allocated in the 2026 budget for the master plan of Bill Laurie Oval. I'm hoping as part of the consultation process for this year's budget that we could bring forward that figure so we could start the master plan process in this coming financial year. Would that be possible? That was my question.
Thank you for your question, Matt. I'll go to Rachel and/or Kylie.
I think really I need to take that question as feedback and note that Council will be considering its draft budget tonight and that there's community consultation process that follows that.
Thank you. I'll go to Matthew Zammit of Thornbury, who is attending in person. Please ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, Matthew Zammit from Thornbury. Got 3 questions. First one is, what is Darebin Council's understanding of the positive duty to eliminate discrimination as required by Section 15 of the Equal Opportunity Act 2010, Victoria? The next question is, what is Darebin Council's understanding of direct and indirect discrimination as set out in Sections 8 and 9 of the Equal Opportunity Act 2010, Victoria? And finally, if a road closure permit is required for a works project that requires closure of a street for 1 day, is it necessary to obtain a traffic management plan prepared by a qualified company or professional? And if so, is there a penalty for not complying with such a requirement?
Thank you, Matthew. I'll go to Kylie for the first two responses. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the questions, Matthew. I'll answer questions 1 and 2 together. The Victorian Equal Opportunity Act 2010 protects people from discrimination and harassment in areas of public life, including workplaces and places that provide services. As an employer and a service provider, and in its operations, Council is bound by the Act, which prohibits discrimination, whether direct or indirect, on the basis of many personal characteristics. The Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission has clear guidance on what constitutes direct and indirect discrimination. As outlined in Council's Towards Equality, Equity, Inclusion and Human Rights Framework 2019 to 2029, the Victorian Equal Opportunity Act aims for greater equality and the prevention of discrimination by placing a positive duty on local councils to take proactive, reasonable and proportionate measures to eliminate discrimination, sexual harassment and victimisation. This means Council strives to be an equal opportunity employer and reviews its services, programs, places, spaces and operations to prevent discrimination. An equity impact assessment is a key internal process that seeks to ensure council policies, programs and services are accessible, equitable, inclusive and responsive to our community. This process seeks to improve outcomes for communities experiencing disadvantage or discrimination and to comply with our positive duty under the Act. I'll now hand over to my colleague Vanessa, who'll answer the third question.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you again for the question, Matthew. Yes, Section 99A of the Road Safety Act 1986 does require a traffic management plan for works or for non-road related activities. The traffic management plan must comply with the prescribed requirements and be prepared in accordance with any requirements of the Council as the coordinating road authority. And under Section 16 of Schedule 7 of the Road Management Act 2004, it is an offence to conduct works on a road unless consent has been received.
Thank you. I'll go, our next questioner is Anne Laver, who's not attending, so I'll go to Jody for the questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Anne's question is, can Council take steps to introduce a vacancy tax, and please write to the Victorian Government to A, take action to upgrade the public housing of those which are empty, and B, to consider an amendment to the Planning Act which offers an incentive that enables any owners of vacant shops the option to convert their property to housing.
Thank you. I'll go to Vanessa for the response.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the questions, Anne. The vacant residential land tax is a Victorian state government tax which was introduced in 2018 and currently applies within the City of Darebin. You raised an amendment to the planning scheme. Council is currently working on an update to the Darebin housing strategy to examine housing demand and the ways that the supply of housing across Darebin can be increased. This evening, Council is considering its draft budget for consultation, which proposes a project to update the planning scheme with this strategy. Council continues to advocate to the Victorian Government to introduce mandatory affordable housing contributions into planning schemes and to increase social housing by making efficient and effective use of public land and investment, establishing sustained funding streams and partnering with Darebin to deliver local projects and allied services and support.
Thank you. I'll go to our next questioner is Jim from Fairfield, who's not attending. So, Jodie, I'll go back to you.
Through you, Mayor. From Jim, as a member of the Affordable EV Hub subgroup of Darebin Climate Action Now, I'd like to know how Council can ensure that prospects for the hub will not be greatly diminished if a current lessee has to move all of his equipment, tools and experimental vehicles from 2 Wingrove Avenue before we know the results of the expression of interest process, noting that Council's end of May deadline for leaving the site is just days after the deadline for submissions to close on the 22nd of May. And can the lessee please be allowed to remain and continue to operate on a temporary lease until the EOI process has been finalised?
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for the responses.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jim, for the questions. I'll take certainly those two questions together. I can't share information about a particular licence publicly or with someone who's not the licensee themselves. So I'm sorry, Jim, but I can't answer your question directly. Council officers are in direct contact with all licensees, and we welcome any applications for the EOI process that's been announced. These will be considered fairly.
Thank you. We next have Kay from Hawthorn. Are you with us tonight, Kay? Please feel free to ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Kay from Hawthorn, and I'm with the Affordable EV Hub Group and also a member of Darebin Climate Action Group. First question is regarding the EOI process for 2 Wingrove Street. How will the applicants be ranked in the decision-making process? Will a not-for-profit status be a criteria for decision-making? And second question is, will council allow Evolution Automotive to remain on the premises and operating as a business until the end of the EOI process?
Sorry, Mayor, before you
Kay.
answer, both myself and
Yes.
Ms Petrie have declared interests in relation to anything to do with 2 Wingrove Street.
Yes.
I'm going
Would
to
you like
just
to
leave the room
step out?
in relation to this.
Sure.
And if you can have me
Yes, look,
return.
I'll just wait until you leave the room, Councillor McCarthy, and then we'll restart. Thank you. So I will go to, thank you, Kay. I'll go to Rachel for the responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kay. The evaluation criteria section of the expression of interest document has sort of set out the criteria and the weighting that will apply in assessing each respondent's application. Those include alignment with council's vision, the benefit provided to the council, which generally also I would say is the Darebin community, and the proposed use of the service to support diverse community members. So we would do that evaluation in a fair and transparent way with a mix of skills on an evaluation panel. And more information can be found in the information pack. I can't respond to your question, your second question about the particular arrangements with a particular licensee. We are in touch directly with all licensees.
Thank you. Do we have Marion from Alphington? Thank you, Marion. I'll ask you to come to the lectern and ask your 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to ask this question. I'm Marion from Alphington. My first question, regarding the petition for an affordable EV hub lodged at the last council meeting, could council please prepare a written reply to myself, Marion Gray, I started the petition, on behalf of the DCAN EV hub subgroup for circulation to the 1,300 plus petition signatories responding to each of our petition requests.
Thank you. And your second question, please.
My second question, has a lease for the shed which Craig Bishop currently occupies already been granted to a boxing gym?
Thank you. I'll go to Rachel for the responses.
Thank you, Marion. The petition was referred to the CEO for response and delegated to me as the responsible general manager. And as part of responding, I came out and met you recently to understand more about what you were seeking in the petition. I hope that time also provided you with an understanding of some of the considerations and obligations that council has. I will formally write to you as the petition organiser in response. We would generally then leave it up to you as to how or whether to communicate with others who've been involved in the petition. In terms of your question about whether a decision's been made about leasing part of the shed, I can't discuss any specific leases. What I can say is that Council's advertising an EOI for part or all of the shed, and that no applications or decisions have been made about that as yet. Applications are open and we look forward to receiving them.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillors, can I request an extension of time for question time, please? Moved by Councillor Messina. I'll say seconded by Councillor Williams. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we are now on to Marion of Pascoe Vale, who is not attending. So, Jodie, I'll go to you for her questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, from Marion, she has a question about the election period policy, which was amended and endorsed at the 23 October Council meeting without any process of community engagement. Burundara Council recently tried to do the same thing in February of this year, but after questions were raised about the validity of amending the governance rules without community engagement, they instead chose to put the election period policy on public exhibition. That's the requirement of Section 64 of the Local Government Act. My question is, are councillors satisfied that your resolution of 23 October 23 about the election period policy was a sound one that cannot be challenged? And question 2, my next question is about the governance report, which asks councillors to note a leave of absence from one councillor in April, and why hasn't there been any similar note about the Mayor's leave of absence earlier this year?
Thank you. I will go to Anna for those responses.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Thank you for the questions, Marion. In relation to your first question about the governance rules and the election period policy, I'll take this question on notice and come back to you. And with regard to question number 2, as advised at the March Council meeting, there wasn't a prescribed process in the governance rules for leave requests. So we undertook that from this meeting held in April, that leave requests would be captured in the governance report and reported to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I will go to John Nugent of Epping for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, can I just bring up I haven't had that meeting with you or Peter yet, and I don't know what the hold-up is.
I think we're organising it, John, but I'm very happy to meet. And would you like to move on to your questions?
Yes, Mayor, but I've been asking for a long, long time and still nothing's been done. I know Peter's secretaries or PA's had something to do with it, but she's very uncooperative to work with
I would
me.
like you to move to your question, please.
Certainly, Mayor, but
John, I would
Mayor,
like you to
Mayor,
ask
just hold
you
on
to
one
not
sec.
comment on individual staff members, please, John. Please go to your questions. Thank you.
No wonder people have got a bad idea of this council, but anyway, I'll move on.
John, I'd like you to move to your questions, please.
Certainly, Mayor. Recently I submitted a petition with 125 sections requesting that the pathways be extended and completed on Donoff West and to be included in the 24-25 council budget. Mayor, I forgot to put in the petition that the lighting needs to be done urgently as the people walk through the park at night. I noticed also going back to the pathways, I noticed there are 2 sealed pathways on both sides of the railway lines that runs from Fairfield Station to Alphington Station and also from Regent Station to Preston Station. Mayor, the parks that I looked at all had lighting throughout the park and making it much safer. No lighting is better than no lighting. Mayor, Donoff West is falling further behind other parks in the city. Mayor, I want your personal reassurance from you that you will support the project at Donoff West in the 24-25 council budget.
Thank you, John. I can't preempt any decisions that were made in the chamber, but I will go over to Rachel for the response.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. Certainly, Council's got a tight capital budget with lots of priorities across the city, and ultimately the decision about where to prioritise that spend is a matter for Council. They'll consider it as part of their draft budget today, then hear from community through the consultation process and would encourage you and anyone to participate. That said, there aren't current plans to extend the pathways or the lighting at Doneth West. The long-term plans in that area are guided by the master plan at the site, and you'd be very welcome to take part in the consultation when it comes up.
Will you let me know when that's on, Rachel? Thank you.
Thank you, John. And did you want to ask your other question?
Yes, Mayor, 2 meetings ago I asked the question, why is council killing off democracy and transparency in Darebin? I was advised that the councillors set the agenda for the number of council meetings to be held each year. At the previous meetings were held fortnightly, then every 3 weeks, and now monthly. The Mayor and the councillors are receiving nearly $500,000 for 10 to 11 council meetings. And if we include briefing session, it costs the ratepayers approximately $21,500 for a meeting and a session to ask for people to ask questions. Mayor, if we had more council meetings, the people could ask more questions and democracy and transparency would be able to flourish in the city. Mayor, as spokesman for the councillors, what are you going to do to improve the transparency and democracy in Darebin? And I did ask you, Mayor, to answer that question.
Thank you, John. I'm very committed to transparency and democracy in Darebin, and I will go over to Anna for the response to your question.
Thank you for the question, John, and through you, Mayor. Each year, Council resolves to confirm its meeting schedule for the year ahead. The ordinary meetings of Council are held monthly except for the month of January. On occasion, special Council meetings or unscheduled meetings are convened for a particular purpose or matter that cannot conveniently be dealt with in the next ordinary Council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John, I believe you have a third question.
I do, Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. At a council meeting many years ago, I was advised by the council that is, that Darebin will come first will come first all the time, and Darebin will look after Darebin people first. Now that the Preston market is safe, as I've been told, will now your staff do something about the parking at the market on Saturdays and Sundays from mid-August to the end of September? My question, Mayor, is, will the council staff go into the market and talk to the shopkeepers how this period affects them and what percentage of their take is down and what I was told years ago, Darebin residents will come first? Mayor, I've also attached a list of shopkeepers where I got this information from, and will council now look after the workers and the public as I was advised years ago?
Thank you, John. I'll go to Vanessa for the response, please.
Thank you, John, for the question. And through you, Mayor, the car parking at Preston Market is privately owned, and any parking restrictions are developed and installed by the Preston Market Management.
Hold on, just this.
John, please take your seat. You've asked your 3 questions. John, please take your seat. You've asked your 3 questions. Will you please take your seat? John, will you please take your seat? John, I'm going to have to ask you to resume your seat. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month. John, please take your seat. Thank you very much. Councillors, that ends public question time. So we will now go on to submissions. So Council's governance rules permit members of the public to register to address an ordinary council meeting in relation to matters listed on that agenda. In accordance with our governance rules, submissions can't be made in relation to notices of motion, petitions and urgent business. Thank you to those to item 8, petitions. Councillors, there are no petitions tonight. I'll move on to the next item. Councillors, we have a large agenda this evening that we need to get through in line with the time limits in our governance rules. I will be permitting questions of officers prior to the commencement of debate on each item. If I think sufficient questioning has occurred, I'll exercise my right under the governance rules to limit questions and ask the debate commence. We will now go on to item 9, consideration of reports. And the first report we have to consider this evening is 9.1, the special rate renewal for Northgate, Preston and Fairfield business precincts. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers on this item? Councillor Dimitriadis, please go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to know whether these figures are similar or more than what they were in previous years.
Yes, please go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. The figures compared to the previous special rate renewal are quite comparable. There's only a matter of a few $1,000s in between the previous 5-year iteration of the special rate and the proposed 5-year renewal.
Thank you. Councillor Dimitriadis, do you have a further question?
I just wanted to know, is that for each of the... sorry, through you, Mayor. Just wanted to know whether Sorry? Oh, yes, sorry. Forgotten. So I just wanted to know whether those figures that were just a few $1,000s different, whether it was for all 4 of those organisations or whether it was for a specific one.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. There are 3 current business precincts that are up for renewal: Fairfield Village, Preston Central and Northcote Business Precinct. There is an additional funds going to be raised for the Fairfield Business District. There will be additional funding raised for the Northcote Business Precinct, and the Preston Business District remains similar.
Just in addition to that officer advice, these figures were actually requested by each of these associations. So we didn't delegate those figures. They wrote to us and requested those figures, which are provided as an appendices in this report.
Thank you. Councillor Dimitriadis, have you got any questions, any different questions? No. Thank you. Councillors, have I got further questions on this item? No. Okay. If there are no further questions, we'll commence the debate. I remind you that once we enter the debate, there'll be no further questions. Do we have a mover of this motion? Councillor Rennie, and I'll take Councillor McCarthy as seconder. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This item periodically comes before Council and enables Council to consider the request by these associations for the collection of a levy on their behalf, which is used in accordance with the wishes. So this is not a cost imposed by Council. This is by agreement with trade associations wanting to undertake collective improvements across the precincts that they trade in. And that's a really positive thing. It builds community amongst those traders and builds often a sense of identity that attracts more people to the shopping centre. So the idea of these levies is that they build marketing expertise, they build a sense of collective identity, and these things increase the profits of the businesses that operate in those centres, as well as being community building. And so I commend this to you all as my colleagues, and I'm confident that we'll support the traders in their requests.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. I'll go to Councillor McCarthy as seconder.
Thanks, Mayor. I support everything that Councillor Rennie has said. I just also echo, just also add that there are, in fact, traders associations that have not been able to build the consensus, build the support and that collaborative approach that are seeking to move this way, and not just in Darebin but in other municipalities. So I think we should be really proud of the way in which our traders work together, seek to fundraise in this very strategic way, build their plan, their marketing activity, and in some cases, in fact, are able to employ someone to drive that action on the ground. What it also means is that for those traders associations, when they do institute these mechanisms, they also provide an opportunity through this way for businesses that do not wish or have an objection to the process to make a submission through a fair and reasonable process, which is what the motion outlines as well. And we do know that not all traders want to participate in a levy scheme, and it's actually incumbent upon councillors to hear from all traders in that process as well as any other submitters. So, Mayor, I endorse the recommendation that we have in front of us, and I look forward to seeing the submissions that we receive in relation to this.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Have we got any speakers in opposition to the motion? Have we got any further speakers to the item? No? Okay, councillors, we will put this item to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. So now we have the big item, which is 9.2. Oh, sorry, I should say that that's been carried unanimously. And we're now on to 9.2, which is the draft 24-25 budget and associated documents. So we do have councillors with conflicts of interest in parts of these items. So I understand we have councillors who wish to declare conflicts in relation to points 1, 2 and 3 of the officer's recommendation. As such, points 1, 2 and 3 will be voted on separately to allow for affected councillors to declare their conflicts and leave the room while the debate and vote is undertaken on the relevant item. So first, I will ask councillors if we have any questions of the officers on this item. No questions? Okay, so in that case, we'll commence the debate, and I remind you that once we enter the debate, there'll be no further questions. Councillor Rennie, do you have a conflict on the first part of this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to declare a conflict in relation to point 1, being in relation to Jaka Community Centre. I am the manager of that centre, and it is listed for some capital works.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. I'll just ask you to leave the chamber, please. Thank you. So we're now separately on point 1 of the motion. Do we have a mover for point 1 of the motion? Councillor McCarthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Messina. Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to this item, which is about Jaka?
Look, Mayor, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll make it brief. There is an item here. It's a sum of $240,000 proposed to support a capital works project at Jaka Community Centre. It has gone through the rigorous officer assessment. It has come to us as a recommendation from officers, and on that basis, I'm happy to note that expenditure is included in the draft budget, and to recommend our endorsement of the number 1 line, which then means we can deal with the rest of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Messina, would you like to speak to the item for point 1? No. Sorry, Councillor Dimitriades.
Questions on this per item?
You have a question on point 1. So I did say at the start, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers regarding this item? So what I would suggest is if you have any questions about this item altogether, so draft 24-25 budget and associated documents, I will give you an opportunity to ask your question. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask whether any other neighbourhood houses are receiving this amount of funding in the capital works programs over the next 4 years, as Jaka is.
Sure. We'll go to Rachel for that.
So I'm not able to answer the question directly. What I can say is that this is for structural works under the floor, and it's really essential for that building to remain functional and operating, and we've assessed all of our buildings on a kind of renewal as needs basis, and this one is popping up to the top of the list from that lens.
Thank you. Councillor Dimitriades, do you have further questions on the draft budget item? Thank you. So I've heard from the mover, the seconder has declined. So do we have any further speakers on this item? No. Okay, councillors will go to the vote on this item. So all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. We'll now ask Councillor Rennie to come back into the room. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Councillor Rennie. We're now on to point 2. Councillor Lawrence, do you have an interest or a conflict to declare on this on point 2?
Yes, Mayor Newton, I have a conflict in terms of a family with residential amenity living close to Northcote Golf Course, and I'll be leaving the chamber for the vote.
Thank you. I'll just request that you leave the chamber now. Thank you. Councillors, we're now on point 2 of the motion. Do I have a mover for the motion? Oh, sorry. I will clarify. Have we got any questions for point 2? And I will ask for that to come on screen, please. Thank you. Have we got questions on this item? No questions? Okay. Do I have a mover for point 2? Councillor McCarthy. And do I have a second?
Happy to move this and just note the additional words, which is a variation to the item in the papers.
Thank you. And I've got a seconder from Councillor Hannan's arm first. Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably just make the point that there has been some interest in the program of works that has been proposed for the Northcote Golf Course, and including the section that is no longer part of the Northcote Golf Course, although we do refer to it in that way. It's not part of the operating course. It's actually the path that runs along the eastern and northern park edges. And of course, also the new park that has been created through 5.72 hectares of land at the southernmost end, which of course deserves and requires a name. I thank Councillor Hannan for his advocacy in relation to this matter as well. And of course, there has been work that Council has done in the past looking at potential names, including seeking names from traditional owners, the Wurundjeri Wurrung Corporation. So that could be part of that consideration as per the naming strategy, but that's subject to the process we have ahead of us. So Mayor, I endorse the point 2 as listed on screen and ask and encourage councillors to support that, provide certainty for all community members regarding the path construction program, and of course emphasise that any design that is considered would actually go through a consultation process in advance. So we've got a little while ahead, but it's exciting to see this finally on Council's budget papers.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. I'll go to Councillor Hannan as the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to be clear, that the first part of this item is just a noting that the more substantial works in relation to a new pathway are still 2+ years away, 3 years away really. And the addition here, so that's just a noting, but what we're actually looking to include here is quite minimal. It's a naming process. When we name things in Darebin, we do it with community consultation, and as Councillor McCarthy said, particularly in relation to land, open space, in consultation with Wurundjeri Wurrung people. So there's a cost attached to that. This I see as a piece of unfinished business. It was almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that this council, one of the biggest consultations we've ever had, with huge amount of community input, decided on a shared use strategy for that area to, on one half, develop the golf course, on the other half, to develop the open space. Or it's not even a half, it's just a small part. We've done quite a bit of work in developing the golf course. The golf course, under new management now, and performing quite well. On the other hand, we've really not done much at all other than just maintain a space, which doesn't even have a name. We don't even really know what to call it. We call it the bit on the south side of the golf course. It's unique. There's nowhere else in Darebin like this where we have, I think it's, I can't remember, it's 7 hectares of land just sitting there without a name. At least we need to give it a name. Then we can start talking about bringing the community in that in a really meaningful way. And then, still a few years away, but hopefully not too long away, we can actually see the potential of this space to make it a really great community asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannan. Have we got any further speakers on this item? Anyone in opposition? Any further speakers? No? Okay. Councillors, will go to the vote on point 2 of this motion. All those in favour? That's Councillor Messina, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Williams, Councillor Greco, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Dimitriadis. That motion is carried. So I'll now ask for Councillor Lawrence to be brought back into the room. Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Lawrence. We will now go on to part 3 of the motion. Councillor Messina, did you want to declare a conflict on this part?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'd like to declare I have a conflict on item number 3, that I'm an aged care consultant and delivery of aged care services.
Thank you, Councillor Messina. I'll just ask you to leave the chamber. Thank you. We will go to have point 3 on the screen, please. Thank you. So we've got this part of the motion, part 3, about aged care. Do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Greco.
Sorry, not a question. I was proposing to move the item.
Sure. Let me just test for, have we got any questions? No. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Greco. You'd like to move the item. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Williams. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Newton. Yeah, just a few words in relation to this item. Council has an enormous commitment to the delivery of aged care services, notwithstanding that many councils are abandoning the aged care delivery aspect of their operations. Instead, this council is investing $6.4 million in this space. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because it's a very much loved service of our community, and it's a service that's very much trusted by the community relative to the private sector providing these types of services, and also I would add some non-for-government providers that provide this service. It's a challenging space, aged care services, particularly the delivery of aged care services. Why it's a challenging space? Because there's a tendency to further and further privatise this the delivery of aged care services, and Council has committed to stay in the game of delivering these services, and is also preparing into the future of how we can actually develop a model to address the new funding requirements that the federal government is introducing in relation to aged care services. So I commend that we continue to provide these services, and I'm hoping that councillors will all support council's ongoing commitment in relation to providing and delivering this important service to our ageing community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. I'll go to Councillor Williams as the seconder. Thank you.
I guess many years ago, this council endorsed and we were happy to go ahead with the NDIS, which were for people under 65. We've realised and learnt from those lessons that it's important that we need to ensure that our most vulnerable, which is usually our elderly, who have, particularly in the north, have either a disability or English as their second language. I guess those lessons have been learnt, and that we ensure that we want to protect our elderlies, and this council has had a very, very, the highest reputation in reference to home care and delivering that within a 24-hour period, as in no waiting list. We want to ensure that our elderly people are being protected and they are being looked after as long as possible. We're talking about, as I said, mentioning people who have fought our wars before us, who are our most vulnerable, and they are not familiar with how to get their own private services. As I said, we've seen the schmozzle that's occurred with the NDIS. We certainly don't want to go through the same process with our elderly people, so we're going to fight as much and as long as possible to ensure that we stay in this area of aged care.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have any further speakers on this item, for or against? Councillor Lawrence, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Newton. Yes, Councillor Greco and Councillor Williams have covered some very important points about the importance of this service to our community and the dangers of deregulation that awaits us. However, the council has committed to try and maintain a standard of care that people can rely on and that people from a supplier that they can trust. I would just note one extra fact, that this service has consistently had an 80% satisfaction level, and we've sort of been on our own on that, and we've also been on our own by insisting there isn't waiting lists that actually delay service, because when service is delayed for years, it's actually denied. So it's a very proud record, and we'll continue to fight for this service for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers to this item? No. Okay, councillors, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously, and we will request that Councillor Messina please return to the chamber. Welcome back, Councillor Messina. So we will go on to the next section of the 9.2 draft 24 to 25 budget and associated documents. So we're looking at points 4 to 16. Have we got any questions on this item? Councillor Hannan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just foreshadowing an amendment to deal with a number of sort of proposals that have been discussed. Should that stand? I just had a question. There's been a bit of movement on those today, and just wonder if we could get an update on where those figures have landed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Is that, I think it's Rachel or Peter? Rachel, go ahead.
So thank you, Mayor. Councillor, might I just clarify your trying to understand if the amendment that you're foreshadowing essentially balances the books? Am I interpreting that correctly?
No, I'm pretty sure it doesn't balance the books, right? That's so. I mean, we'll get to that at the decision making, but I just know, we were discussing some of the dollar figures. Actually, Peter, our CEO, suggested that we just check in before going into debating on that. If there's been any movement in the last, this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I understand that council are now going to consider. Now we've dealt with the conflict of interest items. The attachments in terms of John Cain, the plant-based treaty, and then consider reductions and inclusions to the operating budget and capital works budget. There were a couple of movements to the advice we gave you previously. So in terms of the amendment that you foreshadowed that we drafted for you, we counted the plant-based treaty twice. So we've taken one of those out. No, that's all right. It was the advice we gave you. And through you, Mayor, in the previous amendment which was circulated, Councillor Dimitriadis asked for two options on Wingrove Street, and I don't want to create a conflict for the councillor here, but option 2 has been included in line with the principles of including all council requests. There were two options that were provided to council through email. And the other adjustment was there was a carry forward proposed of 75,000 of unspent grant funds, I believe, and then also a proposal to pay 10,000 of those funds this year. So we've just adjusted that carry forward back down to 65,000 and left 10,000 of that to be distributed this year. Otherwise, if you spend 10,000 this year, you've got 10,000 less of your 75 to carry forward. So we've just adjusted that to pay the 10,000 for food this year and carry forward the balance, which is 65. In total, when you move the amendment, we can give you some advice on total savings and proposed cost, but at the moment, based on the draft I've seen, you would have more expenditure than savings at the moment.
Thank you. Did you have further questions?
Yes.
Councillor Hannan.
Yes, please, Mayor. Thanks very much for the update. I just wanted to clarify, with that carry forward of community grants, how much, if we go ahead with their proposed amendment, how much money would actually be in the community grants budget for the coming financial year?
So through you, Mayor, there is 75 unallocated grants fund in the 23-24 budget. We're not expecting to spend that or allocate it between now and the end of the financial year. We'd normally deal with that in the end of year wash up, if you like. It is available to council to direct us to carry that forward. So in essence, by carrying forward all or a part of it, in this case we're saying pay 10,000 this year if you want to fund food services this year, carry forward the balance, which is 65. In essence, what you'd be doing is carrying it forward and adding that to your $2.5 million operating projects to give you an operating project budget of 2.565.
Thank you, Peter. Have we got further questions? Councillor Dimitriadis.
Through you, Mayor, I wanted to ask about Pitcher Park. It's been budgeted, or it's been costed at $82,000 this year. Last year, when the same project was raised, which was coming out of COVID as well, it was costed around $50,000. How did that increase by $32,000 in less than a year?
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Councillor. We haven't specifically compared the two estimates. What the team have done this year is look at it with fresh eyes. They've kept their estimates minimal. I know, for example, that we're talking about ceiling but not curb and channel works inside that budget. And more generally, I can share that we have been experiencing significant construction price inflation. I think the construction price index has increased 25% in the 3 years to last December.
Councillor Dimitriadis, have you got further questions? No. Have we got Councillor McCarthy? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a point of clarity. The report refers to Council's proposed tree planting activity and does give figures in relation to the proposal for, I believe it is 900 trees in streetscapes and 300 trees in parks. Can we just get an estimate at this stage of the total planting numbers proposed in the program as it currently stands, not just the trees but also plants, shrubs and grasses? I suspect that's many more, but if we can just get a rough figure on what we know at the moment.
Thank you. Rachel, did you want to take that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I don't have figures at hand at that level of detail. I would generally expect the number of plants to be greater every year than the number of trees by several orders of magnitude.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy, did you have further questions?
Look, it's only just that we have quoted that figure in previous budget papers. I was surprised that it wasn't included. I know the figure is in the hundreds of thousands in most years. If we could just ask in the subject to council's decision tonight, in subsequent budget documents, if we could have that figure included, that would be helpful for community.
Thank you. Look, I think let's take that on notice. Thank you. Do we have further questions before we... Councillor Dimitriadis, go ahead.
So I'm asking questions, sorry, through you, Mayor, I'm asking questions about the amendment that's going to be put up. Is that appropriate to ask them now? Because I'm looking at the amendment and have a few questions.
Do you mean about Wingrove Street or other...
No, the amendment where we've put all the amendments in one document,
Sure.
actually.
If you have a question about Wingrove Street, then I'll have to ask Councillor McCarthy to leave. But if it's not about Wingrove Street, then go ahead.
So the migration public artwork is, I think, I'm just wanting to know why it's costing the $180,000 for a year's project on a monument, I believe it is.
Sure. Kylie, would you like to take that one under your area?
Yes, through you, Mayor. So at the moment, Council has endorsed $20,000, which is an operating project this year. That project is funding an expression of interest process, and we're currently seeking proposals from creatives at the moment. Council resolved to consider the commission and installation of a monument or piece of public artwork through the budget process. The $180,000 is the expected amount that would be required to commission the artwork and make sure that creatives and artists are paid a fair amount for their installation. It also involves the materials that would be required to create the artwork, as well as any site investigations that might need to be undertaken, the installation and the opening of such a piece of public art.
Thank you. Have you got further questions, Councillor Dimitriadis? Thank you.
Can I just ask, is that one piece of artwork for that amount of money?
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, we're currently out for expressions of interest at the moment, so it will be a bit dependent upon the nature of the expressions that we get, but we're envisaging that would be one piece of artwork. It could be a little different. It depends what comes back through the expression of interest process.
Thank you. Have you got further questions, Councillor Dimitriadis?
Yes, through you, Mayor, I just wanted to ask about KP Hardingman. If we withdraw some money from it, what does that mean for the project moving forward?
Thank you. Mel, did you want to answer
that? Through you, Mayor Newton. Councillor Dimitriadis, I think it depends on whether you are postponing the funding or whether you are reducing the funding. So should you reduce the funding, then that will have an impact on what we're able to deliver for that pavilion. However, if you defer the spending either into the next financial year or the one after, we're confident that we can still deliver the pavilion to the scope that we're working to at the moment.
Thank you. Have you got further questions? No. Have we? Councillor Hannan, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, apologies.
Sorry, I'll go to Councillor Hannan and then Councillor Messina. Thank you.
But just a process question. So we'll see the list of amendments in a minute. Some of them are basically yes or no, we would go ahead with it or not. Some of them are more a matter of degree. I'm wondering if we're moving to sort of decision-making by voting, is there a way to change the amount or to basically put up another option, a higher or lower option on line items? Or I guess seeking a bit of assistance to guide us through that. Thank you.
My understanding is yes, but just for the audience, this is the first time we're doing the budget this way, but I will get guidance from Peter. Did you want to take that one?
Through you, Mayor, I understand the alternative motion that Councillor Hannan's going to put has got all of the councillors' items in it for both reductions and expenditure. across both the operating projects and capital works projects. There is one operating budget item, which is the pensioner concessions, but that's included in the omnibus proposal. I understand Councillor Hannan is putting that to enable efficient debate and has included all councillors' items. I believe the process would be, and Anthony might help me here, that once Councillor Hannan puts it, that you could then take that in parts, and if a councillor wished to amend one of those items, for example, I want to spend more on that or less on that, then the councillor should ask the mover if he accepts it and second it. That's one way to do it, or if not, they could move an amendment to that part of the budget. I think that's correct, Anthony? Yes.
Thank you. And look, I mean, first time doing it, but we've got our expert advice here if we need it as we go through. Do we have any? Oh, Councillor Messina, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I guess mine's more about a commitment and clarification about Council's commitment to KP Hardiman, and in fact, and confirm that Council has submitted a federal grant for $1.5 million. Can we have that confirmation, please?
Thank you. I'll go to Mel for that one. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Newton, I can confirm that we did submit a Play Our Way grant for KP Hardiman this afternoon by the 2 o'clock deadline. So we are very excited and very hopeful that we will get through the first and the second stages of that grant.
Thank you. Fingers crossed. Councillor Messina, did you have further questions? No. Any final questions before we move to the remainder of the budget? No. Okay. Councillors, I will close questions there. Again, this is the first time we're going through the process in this way, so if anything urgent does come up, I probably will allow a question or two here and there if we need to, but we'll try to go through as we can. So do we have a mover for the next part of the budget? Councillor Hannan, and you're moving the foreshadowed motion that you foreshadowed.
Yes.
Is this your motion?
Yes, Mayor, and there's probably a couple more pages to follow.
Sure. We'll just have a quick look through. So it looks like we've got a number of amendments included here.
Mayor, at this point, I'll just note C9C.3, which makes specific reference to 2 Wingrove Street, and ask that that item be dealt with separately before the rest of the budget.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. We've thought about that and we've got a way to deal with, we're able to pull that out. So we'll do that next. But Councillor Hannan, this is the item that you want to move?
Yeah, I just wanted to flag, the question I just asked was in relation to...
Excuse me, Mayor, could I ask the councillors speak a little bit louder into the mic, or put their microphones closer to themselves?
Yes, sure. Councillor Hannan, please continue.
Apologies for that. I'd just like to flag that there was one item in particular I was referring to in terms of whether we can have options. I would prefer to have an option C3 in relation to that item when it comes to that. So it's the Wingrove Street item. I'd be looking for another option. I will need to talk about that when Councillor McCarthy's had a chance to separate himself.
Yeah, look, that's fine. So, councillors, we have an alternative motion that's been put by Councillor Hannan. Do we have a seconder for this item?
Mayor, I'm
sorry.
just seconding it. Before we do that, can we just see the next page?
Yes, governance, could we sort of scroll through? This is quite a long item and we'll be voting line by line. Oh, Councillor Dimitriadis?
Yes. Sorry, just the documentation that we have says that the inclusion about your street, you'll say E3, it should have been 150,000, is that right? Has that changed?
I'll check
from
that
what
with...
we had?
Sorry, I'll check that with Rachel or Peter. Did you want to take that one?
We had clarification from the councillor who had asked about that this afternoon, that they were intending that that was 100,000 rather than 150, and so we took that.
Thanks,
that
Rachel.
clarification.
But look, if you're wanting a different amount, then that's something that'll have to happen in the debate.
Sure, Mayor, but we weren't informed about that. So it's just been seen.
That's okay. I think to move forward, we do have the opportunity to, if we need to amend a figure or attempt to amend a figure, that is possible within the debate.
Sorry, Mayor, I thought it has to be circulated to all councillors before we have an amendment.
So this is all an alternative motion. Councillor Hanna, did you circulate, or has this been circulated?
I would say yes, but an irregular process.
Yes, because it's the spreadsheet.
There was a spreadsheet accompanying a Word doc, accompanying an email, and the figures were inconsistent. So I apologise. My intention was 100,000. 150 came earlier on the day, and I attempted to correct that. So that's...
Sure.
I think I did, but between the email, the Word document and the spreadsheet, and the timing of those, I apologise if it was missed.
So I'm satisfied that was circulated. If an email was sent with a link to the spreadsheet with the proposed amendments, I'm satisfied that was circulated. So, councillors, we have Councillor Greco, are you asking a question or are you wanting to second?
I just had a question, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
This is the first that I actually see of the motion written up. I know that we did receive an Excel spreadsheet. Would it be possible, because we're voting on this, would it be possible that we circulate this alternate motion so that we could have it before us in front of our... because it's a bit difficult to see at this distance.
Councillor Hanna, would you like to reshare the table? Or it can be shared, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Messina?
I'm just wondering if you have an adjournment for 10 minutes, Mayor?
Yes, I think this is a good idea because I feel like I've said this 3 times, but this is the first time that we're doing the budget process this way. It is new for councillors to go through in this way. It's obviously one of our most important things to get right. So, Councillor Messina, yes, we'll do a 10-minute adjournment to come back on this one, and we will come back at 7:46, councillors. Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'm going to resume the meeting at 7:49 p.m. So I will close questions. I think we've had enough questions. So, Councillor Hannan, we have your alternative motion, which hopefully we can get on screen. Thank you. So do we have a seconder for Councillor Lawrence? Thank you. So we now have the motion, but what I'm going to do first is we're going to deal with 2 Wingrove Street. So, Councillor McCarthy, do you have a conflict on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a conflict in relation to any mention of 2 Wingrove Street, and I note that the motion before us has an amendment which refers specifically to 2 Wingrove Street. The conflict of interest I have is what I believe is a material conflict of interest by virtue of my employer, which has and my role there, which has contractual and other relationships with organisations that are involved in that process. Therefore, I'll be exiting the chamber, and I'll return once that item is dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. I'll just wait for you to exit the chamber. Officers, can we please get the section about 2 Wingrove Street on screen? Thank you. So we are talking about... Oh,
sorry, Mayor.
Councillor Demetriadis.
That's not my... That's not my amendment.
Sorry, Councillor Demetriadis, you were wanting to do inclusion of 80,000?
And also the final wording, which was, and undertake broad community consultation about the future of the site.
Sure. We'll get those words on screen now. But yeah, councillors, just so what we're doing with this one is, since Councillor McCarthy has declared a conflict, we are dealing with this particular amendment as if it's a separate item. So what I'll do is I will test for sorry, I'll wait for it to come on screen, just a second. Just working on the wording, just 1 second. We're just getting that on screen, thank you. And just to confirm, we are on point C. Sorry, that council, we're on C, number 3. Councillor Dimitriadis, is this the amendment that you intend to propose? I'll just read it out. So we've got inclusions to the operating projects budget, inclusion of $80,000 to undertake stage 1 of master planning for 2 Wingrove Street, Alphington, including completing a development feasibility study, running a first stage expressions of interest process to identify potential partner organisations, and undertaking broad community consultation about the future of the site. Great. So we're treating this as if it's a separate item. So Councillor Dimitriadis, would you like to move this item? Great. Do we have a seconder for the item? Councillor Greco. Councillor Dimitriadis, would you like to speak to the item?
Sure, thank you for this. I'm actually just put on the spot because Councillor Hannon was supposed to be moving all our amendments today. So what I'm proposing here is planning of the master plan of 2 Wingrove Street in Alphington, which is currently becoming vacant, and we don't know what's actually going to be on that site. So we're proposing, so this money is to complete a feasibility study as well as run an expression of interest process to identify potential partner organisations to develop on that site, and also undertake broad community consultation, so that way the community is involved in what's happening, because there's been a lot of interest about the future of this site. We've heard from the Alphington Commons group, who are they appear to be a great organisation that are really invested in making this site the best it can be for Alphington. There's also other organisations that have expressed interest in it. So it'll be great to see what the results of this study or the master plan that comes back to us in the future will propose. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to this amendment?
I'll reserve my right on this one.
Sure. Councillors, do we have any further speakers to the item? Councillor Reddy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to flag an alternate motion if this is not successful, which would be to propose a lesser amount of $40,000 in line with the recommendation from our staff. I think this is a very worthy project that we'd all like to see be progressed, but if we allocate more at this stage, we're jumping it ahead in lots of ways of other potentially more worthy projects that have been lined up for this type of planning for some time, particularly projects in the north. And I think that it's actually important that we start the work, we signal that we want to start the work, but in line with the recommendation from our staff, I think there's some preliminary work that can be done, and then next year we can look at pursuing it further.
Thank you. So clarifying your foreshadowing a motion if this motion is not successful. Do we have any further speakers to the item? No. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, look, I'll just say a few things in relation to this. Look, I think it's important that we undertake a master plan or a feasibility study, and also seek expressions of interest. I suppose, look, this is not in my ward, it's obviously in the southern part of the city, but I think it's important, look, councillors, we all know that we have a lot of dormant assets in our community, and there's a high need in our community, right across the community. I would argue more so in the north than in the south of our municipality. So it's important that we start the process of ensuring that we start to activate a lot of these dormant assets that we have in our community. And I think by undertaking an expression of interest and a master plan process will help us to do that. Otherwise, we're forever stalling, we're forever pushing back on these issues, and the community, from their perspective, they see that these assets are not being used, or the properties are not being properly utilised when they could be utilised for good community use. So I think we need to bite the bullet on a lot of these things and ensure that we make better use of the community assets that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Demetriades, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to reiterate that I think it's important that we include the community consultation as part of the master plan, and that's what this particular amendment is seeking to do in comparison to the amendment that's been foreshadowed. So this is about engaging the local community who are very engaged, who want to actually be part of this process, and they've got some really great ideas. So it'll be really good to hear what they have to say about the future of 2 Wingrove Street. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll close debate there. So we have a motion to include $80,000 for master planning. All those in favour? That's Councillor Demetriades, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams and Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That's a tie at 4-4, and I'll use my casting vote to vote this motion down. And we have a foreshadowed motion from Councillor Rennie. Did you want to move your foreshadowed motion?
Thank you. I might ask if Councillor Hannan would actually like to move it, because I think you drafted it, but it's going to be the same motion, which was on screen before in relation to 40,000. Do you want me to do it? Okay.
Councillor
Rennie,
yes.
so thank you. I'd like to the inclusion of $40,000 to undertake stage 1 of master planning, including completing a development feasibility study.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder for the item? Councillor Hannan. Oh, okay. Councillor Rennie, is that the motion you want to move?
I'll just make sure. I think we're going to remove undertaking board community consultation. Thank you.
Sure. So go ahead. You've got your chance to speak to the motion.
I'll keep it very brief, because I don't think we need to have the debate several times over. It's really important that we act on this. We don't want a dormant asset. People are quite correct. But what we do need to do, I think, before we go into board community consultation is a development feasibility study to actually understand the risks and limitations of the site, particularly given that we know that there are contaminants there. And it's important that we know what we're dealing with, I think, before we go asking the community for their ideas, because people might get very invested in ideas, and then when we do the feasibility, we may find that because of asbestos or other contaminants, those things are not possible or they're not affordable. And so I really like a staged approach to this. The commitment of money signals to our community that we're serious about activating this asset, and I'm confident we can get a good outcome. It might take a little longer, but I think it will be good for our community to actually be taken on that journey of the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hannan, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll speak briefly. I just wanted to endorse the comments by Councillor Rennie just now, and I'd just like to add that on this particular site, it's very important that we start the process with what is feasible technically. We know, the history of the site, we expect there to be some contamination, and to start with what's feasible and what's commercially possible. And so in this case, it makes sense to start with an EOI and then go to community consultation once we've got an idea, what the possibilities may be. Absolutely, we want to hear from the community, we want to hear from community organisations, and when we say potential partner organisations, I would expect that to include, individual or groups of not-for-profit organisations, commercial organisations, social enterprises. We're not limiting the types of organisations that could express interest at this stage. We're just saying do the EOI first and then go to broader consultation, so as not to raise, run a big program of raising expectations that may not be deliverable. Councillor Richardis mentioned earlier Alphington Commons, which is a vision that's been developed. That's just one. There could be many, but that's a sort of example of the sort of thing that could come up. And we're not limiting the types of visions. We love to see these kind of creative visions for the site. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any speakers in opposition to the motion? No. Have we got any further speakers on the item? Councillor Richardis.
Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to make a few clarifications that have been stated by my previous speakers, and that's that this process is firstly about developing the feasibility studies. So the process that we were told was going to happen was that there was going to be a development of feasibility studies because yes, there is asbestos and a few other things that we might find at the site. Then we were going to progress to an expression of interest stage to identify potential partners. But what is actually not happening is that we aren't going to community consultation with this motion. And that's the problem here. So it was a 3-stage process, and unfortunately the 3rd stage has been removed, and we're now just stopping at the expression of interest stage and not asking the community what they want to see on this site. So I think that just needs to be clarified, because it appears that what was stated previously tends to miss the bit that in this year, so this is a year-long process. In the year-long process, we aren't going to community consultation. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I clarify, are you speaking for or against the item?
So I will be supporting this motion, but I still think that the other one should have gone up for community consultation too.
Thank you. So you're speaking for. Have we got any further speakers to the item? No. Okay, I'll close debate there. I do have the opportunity to say something as well. Just that I'm excited that we are potentially bringing this forward. I've had 3 meetings with different people that are interested already. And I think this term, but also really going into the next term, I think it's really exciting to think about the future of 2 Wingrove Street, Alphington. And we really look forward to working with the community on this one. So we'll close the debate there. So councillors, all those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll ask Councillor McCarthy to return to the chamber, please. All right, so now we are dealing with the rest of 9.2. So Councillor Hannan, should I go over to you to start the process? And councillors, just to confirm, we will vote on each item individually. I think that's the fairest way to do it. So Councillor Hannan, I'll go over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't aim to speak to all the items. I'll just speak generally firstly about the budget overall. Just to say that, just to be clear, that what we're debating here is Council's draft budget for the next year, 2024, and incorporating the next 4 years in terms of the budget as well as the revenue and rating plan. And it's not the final decision on this. It's the decision to go out to community consultation, which will take place immediately after this is approved, to get some community input to the final version. I just want to say, before we get into the detail, I really appreciate all the work that's gone into preparation of this budget across the whole organisation, particularly the finance team and tonight the governance team getting us through it. It's really important to note the financial challenges that apply to all levels of government are very real and continue to impact us all. We're still seeing high inflation, although starting to stabilise, hopefully. Materials and construction costs are still high, as are interest rates. As well, when combined with rate capping and some costs that have been shifted from state to local level, there are real significant pressures on council budget, and this leads to the need to really closely review our priorities and what's deliverable, with a strong lens on what matters most to the Darebin community, what's financially responsible and sustainable. So from the amendment, you can see tonight there's a large number of priorities proposed by councillors in relation to all of council's strategic priorities and areas of operations. So you can see there's just so much that collectively we as a council would like to achieve this year and beyond. However, unfortunately, there's a greater list in most cases of expenses than proposed savings, so we'll need to make some difficult decisions. And I just want to make it clear again that my intention in putting forward this item is not, it's quite clear that we won't be able to accept every item. I've been asked and sort of taken on today for the purpose of coordinating this discussion, just to put together all the proposed amendments that have come in from councillors recently into one amendment so that we can go through it together. I'd just like to draw attention to one item. I won't speak to them all, but there's one thing in there proposed for additional funds for the Your Street, Your Say program. I think for budgetary reasons we've had to pull back a bit on the funding for that, but that's in previous years, but it's left us with a large number of interventions that we'd like to make to increase safety with a very limited amount of resources. So the intention of that one is just to put a bit more money in for the next financial year, even before we've decided exactly which specific projects we're going to approve. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak as the seconder?
Yes, Mayor Newton, I'd like to endorse this budget process that we're going through, which is sort of going to evolve in front of our eyes with these last items. Last year's budget, which was led by Councillor Julie Williams, had a similar constraints in that we suddenly had only $30 million worth of capital works funding. For a council our size, it really should have 40 or 45 million. We've had to do this to address the financial sustainability issues, not of this term of council, but of the next term of council. So these decisions are difficult. Some of us have been used to spending a lot of money in the community, building and rebuilding a lot of things over many years. But the war chest for really a lot of capital works is going to come to the next council, as long as we can maintain some discipline this year, next year, and the following year. These three budgets are really critical. So it's not going to be all on our shoulders, it's going to be on the shoulders of the next council as well. So there are, many good things that have been thrown up. I can think of another dozen, but we need to actually address the financial sustainability, and there's plenty of planning and there's plenty of time for this city to really develop in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Have we got any further speakers before we go to the vote on each potential amendment?
Mayor, can I just ask, after we've addressed all the amendments, is it possible then to speak to the substantive motion, or would you like to hear those first?
My view is yes, because we've got a whole lot of amendments that we're going through. We're voting on each one. So I think that, to be fair, when this is, we're talking about $200 million plus that we're putting out for community consultation. So yes, to me, I think it's fair to speak to the substantive after. Great. So look, I'm not seeing any hands. So shall we go straight to voting? So the first thing we're voting on is number 4. Endorse the officer recommendation on the report, waiver of licence fees for sporting clubs, Appendix F, to the continuation of the current performance subsidy program, and that officers commence a holistic review as noted in the report. Councillors, all those in favour? So that is Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie. Oh, sorry, that is carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll go on to 5. So we have a amendment for this item, or a proposed amendment. So I'll read it out. So it's 5 notes that report to Council on John Cain Memorial Park Gender Inclusive Facilities Project Update, Appendix G. and endorses option 1 and requests the CEO or delegate work with SRV to seek to use the $500,000 grant from the state government to improve the existing JCMP North Change Pavilion female-friendly facilities and contact Northcote City Football Club to provide them with an opportunity to add additional funding to augment the scope of the project if they wish to. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to 6. Notes the report to Council on Plant-Based Treaty and Victorian Food Consensus Statement, Appendix H, endorses the plant-based treaty and allocates $5,000 funded as part of the Climate Emergency Plan delivery budget to undertake the Climate Food Resilience Scoping Study in 24-25 to inform further council food action in subsequent years and communicate this to the community. All those in favour? That is Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Newton. All those against? All those abstaining? That's Councillor Demetriadis. That is carried. Councillors, we're going to be all night if I read everyone out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say number 7, for example, but if anyone does want me to read out the item, just let me know and I'll do so. So item 7 is about, oh sorry, aren't I on 7? Sorry. So 7 is about referring 4 topics to the budget development process, which is graffiti, migration artwork, climate emergency and reservoir boathouse. So all those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. So we'll go on to 8. Just give me 1 second for governance advice on this one. Okay, and look, councillors, I think we should vote on each one individually. So this is, with this one, we are endorsing the draft 24-25 budget with the following amendments. So this is reductions to the operating projects budget, and I'll go line by line. So the first one is reduction of $10,000 from, oh sorry, Councillor Rennie.
Mayor, sorry, with apologies for the interruption, just for the purposes of clarification, we're not actually endorsing the draft budget at the moment, are we? We're just voting on the points under A, because we're going to endorse the draft budget after we've done this, I think. So I almost wonder whether 8 needs to come down, or at least if we're clear that nothing in our votes at the moment are endorsing the budget, because we've still got a lot of work to do on working out what the budget is.
Yes. Do we need to seek any governance on that?
Through you, Mayor, I think that's implied in the way we're doing the process. So because it says you're endorsing it with the amendments and the amendments are subject to voting, when we get to the end of it, we might pause and just check that that's the budget you're endorsing. We will add this up and take it away as you go, and then we'll give you some advice before you pass it as a substantive.
Thank you, Peter. I think that's clear. So we'll first go to reduction to the operating project budget, reduction of $10,000 from service reviews. All those in favour? That is Councillor Demetriadis, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That is Councillor Hannan, Councillor Messina and Councillor Newton. That is passed. So we'll go to the next one, which is removal of $50,000 for micromobility. All those in favour? Councillor Lawrence and Councillor Williams. All those against? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those abstaining? Councillor Demetriadis. So that is carried. Yeah. So sorry, it's not carried. So it's lost. Yeah. So it's double negative. So the removal is lost. So the next one is reduction of $50,000 from the placemaking program. All those in favour? Councillor Greco and Councillor Dimitriadis and Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That motion is lost. The next item is removal of $50,000 for additional graffiti removal. All those in favour? Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That is lost. The next one is removal of $40,000 to establish a water-sensitive urban design WSUD, or WSUD, as Peter was saying, in lieu scheme. All those in favour? All those against? That is lost unanimously. I think it's the first time I've said lost unanimously. We are now on to noting $6,000 of our unallocated operating budget. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. So we are now going on to B. So carry forward and reallocate $65,000 of unspent funding from the Community Grants Program in the 23-24 year. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're now going on to C, changes to the operating projects budget and operating budget. This is number 1. I'll read this one out. Increase of $50 to $200 to the pensioner concession that applies to the curbside waste service charge and also the pensioner safety net concession on the general rates. Noting the pensioner concession on the curbside waste service charge would be funded an increase of the curbside waste service charge of approximately $6. Councillor Messina, did you have any interest or anything you want to say?
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Can I ask what the net impact of that would be in the first year and any compounding year, please?
Yes. Rachel, is that one for you?
So that would essentially be an increase that applies every year, and it would go. The effect of it would go up with inflation over time. So it would be indexed over time and be an annual cost rather than a once-off.
Thank you. Councillor Messina.
Sorry, my question's not fully answered. What is the net loss or increase in the budget?
Are we able to answer that, Rachel, for this year?
So for this year, most of the cost is covered through a cost subsidy, and so the impact for a household receiving their curbside waste service charge is an increase for most households of $6, and that funding is then goes towards the concession provided to the waste to the pensioners. There are a very small number of people who receive their pensioner concession rebate through a different mechanism, and this year the net cost of this change is about $8,500.
Thank you. So, councillors, we will vote on that item. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? Councillor Rennie and Councillor Newton. That is passed. We'll go to inclusion of $75,000 for review and rescope the active spaces. Oh, sorry, one sec. Sure. Thank you, Peter. Darryl, would you be able to tell us the spend that we have on these items in total? Or Peter, do you want to clarify that question? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So given Council didn't take all the recommended savings and they're now going to consider inclusions, how much is left in the operating budget after this? Still to spend on the operating budget after the decision's already made?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. We started with 6,000 available and we've added in 25.
Thank you.
And through you, Mayor, and we've taken savings of 10,000 on service reviews and we've carried forward 65,000, is that correct? So I think we've got about 61,000 to spend on all these inclusions, Mayor, in my calculation. I was just going to get the CFO to check that.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll just check in. Thank you.
Shall I assist Daryl or through you, Mayor? Got it?
So if we're including the 65, yes, and the 10,000, and we started with 6.
Through you, Mayor, that's 81, and Council have already committed to spend 40K on the site and 25 on the golf park naming.
Yes.
So that would be net savings of 81. Less expenditure through decisions already made of 65 would leave 16,000 left to spend on all these inclusions, correct? Thank you. I just want to confirm those figures, Mayor.
Thank you. That's useful. Thank you, Peter. So we will go on to inclusion of $75,000 to review and rescope the active spaces program. All those in favour? That's Councillor Hannon, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Lawrence. All those abstaining? Councillor Demetriadis. Oh, and Councillor Greco. Thank you. That is carried. Inclusion of 30... Oh, sorry. Councillor Hannon.
I'm sorry, I have a question on this one. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead. It's a long item.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll go to Councillor Hannon and then Councillor Greco.
My question is just what is the addition or change to the draft budget? My understanding is it's actually only a $10,000 increase to what's in the budget, or just wondering if that could be clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is it 10,000 for a wine and food festival, or is it 35?
Through you, Mayor, officers' advice is to deliver this program that is in a safe and compliant manner, so meeting occupational health and safety, food safety requirements. $35,000 would be required. It is programmed to be included again in the 2026 financial year, and $25,000 is required to do that. With the current events program that the team have, $35,000 would be required to undertake that event in a safe manner. Because of the other events that the team are running, the team would need some staffing or additional staffing to help in running that event safely. If council wish to consider a lesser amount, officers would recommend that we undertake an expression of interest process to see if there are community groups that would be interested in undertaking or delivering the event for 2025. But for council to do that with the obligations it has as a public body, officers are recommending $35,000.
Thank you. Councillor Hannon, did you have further questions? No. Councillor Greco, did you have a question?
Yes, Mayor Newton. My question clarification is that it was only the inclusion of 10,000 for this particular item. We're only talking about an event which is basically for half a day. $35,000 seems a bit excessive for me. I don't know how we arrived at that figure. So I actually put in for $10,000 for this particular item.
Okay, so if the amendment that a councillor wanted to put forward is $10,000, I'll check governance, but should we have that as the amendment? I'll double check.
Through you, Mayor, the officer's advice has been clear. If you want us to run this and meet all our occupational health and safety requirements in running an event, the cost is $35. If the council wishes to put in 10, we can, between now and the adopted budgets, provide further advice on what could be provided for 10 to all councillors. But our advice at this stage is if you want us to run it, it's $35,000.
Thank you. So, Councillor Greco, can I check your intention with this amendment? Did you want to put in 10,000 or did you want to put in 35?
My original intent was to an inclusion of $10,000.
Thank you. Then I think if that's the councillor's intent...
I think you should ask the mover and seconder to accept that.
Sorry,
Mayor,
yeah, that's a good point.
It's an amendment to this amendment.
Yes, that's a good point. So, Councillor Hannon and Councillor Lawrence, are you happy to incorporate the... I'm happy amendment. Yeah, Councillor Hannan, are you happy to incorporate the amendment, which we'll then vote on, about the inclusion of 10,000 rather than 35?
Yes, happy to incorporate it.
Great. So I think then we vote on that. So councillors, we're now voting on the inclusion of $10,000 to deliver a wine and food festival at the Preston Town Hall in 2025. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Hannan and Councillor Rennie. Thank you. That is carried. We'll go to the next one, which is inclusion of $15,000 to undertake broader consultation relating to how to best activate the Edwards Lake Boathouse. All those in favour? That is Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Rennie. That is carried. We'll go to inclusion of $70,000 for a high-level concept design.
If I may, again,
yes, Councillor
point
Greco.
of clarification. The intent was here, again, not $15,000. It's excessive. It was $10,000.
Oh, sorry, that one's been carried. So $15,000 for broader consultation has been carried. Sorry, I thought we just carried the inclusion of $15,000. Oh, sorry. Oh, you've jumped to the next one. Sorry. So we'll go step by step. So we're on currently inclusion of $70,000 for high-level concept design for community engagement and to advocate for external grant opportunities for the Reservoir Leisure Centre project in the 24-25 financial year. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis. Oh, sorry.
Now?
Sorry. I'll read it again. We're on, it's 6, inclusion of $70,000 for a high-level concept design for community engagement and to advocate for external grant opportunities for the Reservoir Leisure Centre project in the 24-25 financial year. All those in favour? Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? Councillor...
Excuse me, before we actually consider a vote, I was the one that actually put this one up, but the wording there is not what I actually had considered. I'm not sure whether it's been lost in translation, but I have not put that item up. I communicated this to councillors. I communicated this to Councillor Hannan, but it has not been reflected. And I thought that this process was to reflect the various components that councillors wanted to put forward.
Look,
that does not reflect my intention.
So I might need to check governance advice on that because we've just voted on that item. So let me check.
My wording had no reference whatsoever to, as a way of advocating for external grants, that the council put forward the money to conduct the concept design.
Look, let me just double check governance advice because we have voted, but let me check. Do it again, yeah. Thank you. Councillor Greco, what we'll do is we'll do the vote again, but could you let us know what the words that you wanted included were? And then we can seek for them to be accepted by the mover and the seconder. Yes, please.
I think I sent this through, which was to...
Mayor, can I make a suggestion? Is it possible that we can lay this part of it on the table and follow through to the remaining? And if we need, Councillor Greco can find his wording, and if he hasn't, maybe make an amendment?
Councillor Williams, I don't want to lay this item on the table because then we wouldn't be able to vote on it. We'd have to wait until the next meeting. So I don't want to lay it on the table.
I didn't mean, I guess, lay it on the table for the next meeting. I meant as in give Councillor Greco time to find his wordings.
I'd prefer not to because I know that Councillor Greco had a question about the next one, so I don't want to not be fair to Councillor Greco.
So just to get some clarification from our officers, because my original one had no reference to external grant opportunities. And
Sure.
I noticed that the wording there says for council, a high-level concept design for community engagement and to advocate. So I just want to understand, if this was to be passed in this form, what product would that deliver?
Thank you. Look, I mean, I think the thing to do would be to go with, we can request for the mover and second to accept what you'd put forward originally. So I think that might be the more streamlined way to go through the process. So are we able to get what Councillor Greco intended or what he might have shared before? Councillor Greco, could you circulate?
Yeah, I have. Look, it's pretty simple, is that the council undertakes a concept design process, and that as part of the 24-25 budget.
Sure.
Not conditional
so
on
really
whether we get external grants or not.
So we just need to remove and to advocate for external grant opportunities for. And then that would read inclusion of $70,000 for high-level concept design for community engagement at the Reservoir Leisure Centre project in the 24-25 financial year. Great. So councillors, we've got that to vote. So we're actually, sorry, I need to go first. So Councillor Hannan and Councillor Lawrence, do you accept?
Vote, Mayor,
oh, sorry.
Yeah. I just want to get clarity, because we need to be really clear about what is the product that will be produced out of this wording. So could I just get some clarity about that? Because I don't want there to be confusion down the track.
Yes, that's fine. Kylie, did you want to clarify what would be delivered as part of this 70,000?
Of course. Through you, Mayor. Some of the product would be a bit dependent upon the scoping study, which we're starting engagement on. So the final product of what a concept design might be will be influenced by that. What I would stress is that it would be a very high-level concept design. So it may be drawings and site designs and the like, but I would stress that it's not detailed design. That would be a further piece of work that council would need to take at an appropriate point in the project life cycle to move to construction. So it really would be about taking the input from the community through the scoping study and presenting, pictures and drawings that the community could engage with, but it's certainly not something that could then very easily move to construction. There would be much more detailed design that would be required. I don't know if Melanie or Rachel want to add.
Look, that's clear enough for me, and
Sure.
I thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. So I'll ask if what Councillor Greco has put forward is acceptable to the mover, Councillor Hannan and Councillor Lawrence. Yes, Councillor Hannan?
Yes, and apologies
Yes.
if anything was lost. Not my intention. Thank you.
Sure. So we're voting on inclusion of $70,000 for high-level concept design for community engagement at the Reservoir Leisure Centre in the 24-25 financial year. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? Councillor Newton, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Messina. That motion is lost. So we'll go to Councillor Greco. Did you want to put, was your intention $10,000 for a multicultural oration? Okay. Is that acceptable? So we're changing that from $15,000 to $10,000. Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder? Yes, and thank you. Seconder, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Hannan.
Yes, acceptable.
Thank you. So we'll go to the vote on inclusion of $15,000 to deliver a multicultural oration. Oh, sorry, it hadn't been changed yet. Inclusion of $10,000 to deliver a multicultural oration in 2025. All those in favour? That is Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Hannan and Councillor Rennie. That is carried. And the last one on this section is authorise the CEO or delegate prior to 30th of June to allocate up to $10,000 from currently unspent funds in the 23-24 Community Grants Program to a suitable organisation in Darebin that shares food to support Darebin residents experiencing cost of living impacts. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we'll go on to D, reductions in the... Oh, sorry, Councillor Hannan.
Sorry, Mayor, just on a procedural suggestion. In this case, it's the opposite of operating. There's a lot more savings proposed than expenses, and I actually would suggest that we go through the expenses first and then do the savings for this one.
Yes, that's fine, and that's I'm happy with that as chair. So we're able to flip those around. Sorry, governance team, we're putting you through the ringer a bit here. So just to clarify, Councillor Hannan, your intent is to go through E first before D. Okay. So if we could move up to E, inclusions in the Capital Works Program budget, and we'll do that before we look at reductions. Councillor McCarthy.
Mayor, I would just also foreshadow an additional point which I will seek officers' input from, which would, in relation to the operating budget that we've just resolved, is to ask the CEO to identify what savings and other efficiencies can be recommended back to council to accommodate the variation between operating expenditure versus operating expenditure additions versus savings and reductions.
Thank you. And we don't need immediately, but it would be good to know how much we're over. But we'll go to inclusions to the Capital Works Program budget. So our first one is inclusion of $180,000 for the Migration Public Artwork Project in the 24-25 financial year. All those in favour? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Newton. All those against? And all those abstaining? Councillor Dimitriadis. That is carried. We've got inclusion of $175,000 for the redevelopment of the Edwards Lake Boathouse. All those in favour? Councillor Greco and Councillor Dimitriadis and Councillor Williams. And Councillor Lawrence. And all those against? Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That is lost. We'll go to 3, inclusion of $100,000 for Your Street, Your Say project delivery in 24-25, with projects to be confirmed after council endorses Area B, Your Street, Your Say priority projects at a future meeting. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. The next one is inclusion of $82,000 for resurfacing the car park at Picture Park Oval. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Yes.
So it's instead of car park, it's actually the entrance to the Picture Park Oval.
Okay. So instead of car park, we'll put entrance, and is that acceptable to the mover and seconder? Councillor Lawrence, are you fine with that? It's entrance. Thank you. And Councillor Hannan, you're happy with that? Thank you. So the next vote is inclusion of $82,000 for resurfacing the entrance to Picture Park Oval. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That is lost. The next one is inclusion of $15,000 for planning and design for improved lighting at the Reservoir Athletic Track. All those in favour? That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. All those against? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Newton, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina. That item is lost. Councillor Hannan, did you want to go back to the reductions? Oh, did we have one more line? Sorry. That's another number. So we're on 9 and the next one is 10. So we'll finish with 9 first. So we have to go back to reduction. So we're now back at reduction to the Capital Works Program budget. Do we need to find out how much?
Question?
Yes, Councillor Hannan.
Yes, Mayor. It would be helpful for this one to know just a stock take of the additional capital works expenses we just agreed on. Could we get a quick stock take on that, please?
Yes. Rachel, we're able to find out what's the reduction we need to balance the budget for capital?
So we've been tallying your inclusions and we get 280,000. So that's what you'd need to find on the other side through reductions.
So I might make a possible suggestion for an amendment for the first one to say 280 reduction, but I can't move an amendment. Councillor Messina, so we've got an amendment from Councillor Messina, or actually an amendment to say deferral of $280,000 for redevelopment of KP Hardeman. Is that acceptable to the... Sure. Councillor Messina, would you be happy to also delete the other items as we don't need those savings? Perfect. So what we're doing is we're going to say, one, a deferral of $280,000 for redevelopment of KP... Sorry, just one sec, Councillor Michirata. So we're going to say deferral of $280,000 for redevelopment of KP Hardeman, and we're going to remove the other items, the other 5 items. Councillor Dimitrios, did you have a question?
Yes, in regards to the Community Building Improvements Program, currently that's not allocated. How much, as in for which programs are included in that item? So how much is budgeted for that?
Sure. So there's a question about one of the items we're suggesting removing. So it's a question about what's allocated for the $150,000 of Community Building Improvements Program now. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite get the question.
Through you, Mayor, I think the question was, if we don't defer the 280 and we took some of it from the community building improvement, what would we not be doing? Is that right, Councillor Mead?
Oh, I see, sorry.
You want to understand if some of that money could come from the community improvements program?
Yes, that's right. But is it currently, the Community Building Improvements Program, is that budgeted for 150,000 or is it more?
Rachel, would you be able to answer that?
So currently that's a small program. The total budget in the draft budget is 150,000, and that budget is used essentially to respond to requests from users or tenants of our buildings for improvements through the year. If that's removed, essentially we might receive requests, but we'd consider them for inclusion the following year. We wouldn't do them next year.
Sure. So it's not allocated to a particular project. It's there if people have things they need to fix.
I should make the distinction to say it's for improvements, not renewal. So if something broke, we would fix it, and that's provided for in a different program.
Thanks for that clarification. Sorry, Councillor Greco, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If I may ask, get some clarification through you to the officers. With the deferral of 281,000 for the KP Hardeman Pavilion, can we just get the context in relation to that, what that would then actually mean for that particular project in the 24-25 year?
Yes, I'll go to Mel.
Through you, Mayor Newton. Basically, with deferring that amount, we would be looking for the 280,000 to be in the 25-26 financial year. It just means that we will stage the program so that we spend $280,000 less next financial year. It won't impact the scope of what we are looking to deliver and what we have put forward as part of the Play Our Way grant today.
Thank you. And just noting that we have put forward a Play Our Way grant application for KP Hardeman.
Just a further clarification on that, so just to understand, so that we all understand and we're all on the same page. In the 24-25 year, how much are we spending on the KP Hardeman project, of which 281 comes off if this was to be passed, so that we get a sense of what part of the project, how much of the project is actually being progressed in the next financial year?
My figures are $1,019,000.
If you could just give me a moment to look up the exact numbers.
And Mayor, just the context of my questioning is that because we have put in a grant, I just don't want us to be in a position where if we go too low on this, that it may jeopardise then our opportunity to apply for a grant.
Yes, I think that's a reasonable question.
I was actually just wanting to ask that we adjust the figure to 280 rather than 281.
Yes, 280,000.
Through you, Mayor Newton. We had originally put into the draft budget to spend $1.3 million, and so that would mean that we are spending $1,002,000 next year. So it's not a material difference. We will be looking to go to tender, and then we will just schedule the project accordingly to spend those funds with our constructor when they are awarded.
Thank you. I think it'd be $1,020,000.
Sorry, my apologies.
Thank you. Councillor, so where we're at in the process is we're asking Councillor Haddon as the mover and Councillor Lawrence as the seconder if you accept that we amend. You don't accept. Okay. So sorry, what was the original figure we had for... okay, then we have to go to you. So do we have a seconder to amend this to Councillor Rennie? Okay, so what we're doing is we're amending to defer 280 rather than 600. I think that was the previous figure. 400, sorry. And get rid of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you want to speak to that?
This is about a budget. And it's about balancing debits and credits, and this is what this particular item is, to ensure that we move forward with a balanced budget. So that's why we have had a running total, and that's 280. I thought it was 281, but I'm happy with the 280. So that's what this item is.
Thank you. Councillor Rennie, did you want to speak to the proposed amendment?
Just really quickly, I'm very pleased actually that we don't need to defer quite as much. We were talking about deferring 400,000, now we're talking about deferring 280,000. That still leaves over $1 million of investment in KP Hardiman. I've been really clear that this project's been delayed enough. It should not be delayed further, and what I'm hearing is that actually this won't delay it further. It will just mean that the payments are scheduled in such a way that we back end the payment schedule to fall into the next year. It'll get going, it's shovel ready, and I really look forward to it being built.
Thank you. Any speakers in opposition? Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Newton, and thank you for the councillors who've put in a lot of work on these additions and reductions and insertions today, and the officers who've supported us. We've heard about this federal grants. It's been some years since we used to get 55% of the capital works up in the north of the city. Councillor Greco and Councillor Trent McCarthy may remember that when you apply for things in needy areas, you actually get money out of federal Labor governments. Sometimes, a lot of times. This is exactly, we've got a lot of things. I don't know how many trees for 200,000. The trees, I remember getting them down to $300 a tree. I think they've ballooned out now. I'm not sure how many street trees we actually get these days. But I know our volunteers can plant more. But the thing is, we're sending a message after having had many lean years in capital works above Bell Street that we want your money, federal government, but we're going to use this as a piggy bank. And in fact, tonight we've foreshadowed we might take 400,000. Oh no, we're going to take 200,000. We could have spread some of these cuts across the city, across a range of activities. Our deficit in credibility is actually infrastructure about Bell Street. And I think this is the wrong way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers to the amendment? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Greco, go ahead.
Yeah, look, I asked some questions around this. I have some concerns about it. We're sort of chopping and changing, as Councillor Lawrence said. I believe that we could find the savings in other capital works expenditure, apart from the ones that are there. I think if we had a bit of time and the opportunity to do that, we could easily find $240,000 to do that. So I'm really concerned that we're shortchanging the community and their expectations, and also I'm really concerned that given that we have put in a submission today by the deadline, I think we're sending out the wrong message that this project could be chopped and changed and shortchanged and not fully funded from a council perspective, and I don't think that I think that would do a disservice to us. So I really believe that we should not be deferring this $280,000, and I believe that we could find some money elsewhere in the budget to cover off on this. And I'll just finish on this, and I just want to throw this out for our officers, is that because we have a community building improvement program, which is not specific, it's not specific, whether a good portion of that money could be used and to give signal that we're committed to the KP Hardeman, and then when we come back to endorse the final budget, we can then see where we can find that 280,000. So I'll just put that out there, and if we can, officers, I would really entertain that.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. So we'll go to the vote on, this is whether to include the deferral of $280,000 to then vote on and remove the 2 to 6. So all those in favour, that's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against, that's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. That motion is passed. So we now have to vote on that. So we're now back to, it's really just one line now. So it feels a bit awkward, but yeah, we're voting on this one now because it's now part of the substantive items.
If I may, in terms of the vote, I think it was, if I'm mistaken, I think it was 4-4. Oh no, 5, was it 5-4?
There's 9 councillors in the room, Councillor Greco.
Sorry, it was, I didn't see your vote in relation to it.
My vote is 4.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I called that out. So we're now going to, this is now part of the substantive item, but we have to vote on it. So we're now voting on deferral of $280,000 for the redevelopment of KP Hardeman from 24-25 to 25-26. All those in favour. That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against. Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Lawrence, and Councillor Williams, are you against or abstaining? Abstaining. So Councillor Williams is abstaining. That motion is passed. So we'll now go on to 10. Sorry, Councillor McCarthy.
Sorry, if I can, we did jump, I think the previous points were all under point 8.
So do we have a point 9?
We don't have a point 9, however, so I have circulated a point 9 as foreshadowed that, and I can read it out for you if it's useful.
Thank you.
Officers should just now have it, and welcome to have the wording changed if necessary. But if I can just propose this additional point, Mayor, which would be point 9, it would read that point 9 requests the CEO to identify further operational savings and efficiencies that can be considered as part of the final budget.
Thank you. Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder, Councillor Hannan and Councillor Lawrence? Oh, sorry. Peter, I'll just seek clarification.
Can I seek clarity on the intent of that point? Through you to Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, Councillor McCarthy.
Is the intent of this to ask me to find the $100,000 that you've spent extra on operating projects from the operating budget or from operating project savings, noting that the organisation has already built in $3 million worth of operating savings and efficiencies already to create the draft budget that you have before you tonight? Or are you asking me to put further options up to you for operating project reductions? Or are you asking me, through the Mayor, to increase that efficiency dividend from 3 to 3.1 million?
Councillor McCarthy, did you want to clarify your intent?
Thank you for the question and for the clarification sought. The question is a little bit of all of the above, in fact. So it's actually incumbent upon us as councillors to ask for options from the CEO to deliver a balanced budget, and so I'm asking to put an amendment on the table that provides the CEO with enough breadth in the advice provided back to us. I'm happy to change the wording if need be. Happy to receive any officer advice in relation to that.
Through you, Mayor, I think it would be, for clarity, just so we've got clear direction, Councillor McCarthy, to insert, find further operating project savings and or operating budget savings. So we're talking about two parts of the budget, if that's your intent. That just makes it very clear what you're asking me to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy with that clarification, Councillor McCarthy?
Very happy with that. And just wanting to, sorry, Mayor, very happy with that. And just wanting to make sure as we hopefully move closer to adopting a draft budget, that it is clear that Council's intent is to balance the items, but also giving the organisation the ability to give some consideration to that.
Thank you. Is that acceptable to the mover, Councillor? Sorry, do you have a question? What's the question?
Sorry, Mayor, just wanted to ask, so the CEO's just said that the organisation has gone through a comprehensive process, but requesting the CEO is kind of a big statement. Like, if there isn't possible to do that, can the CEO come back and say that there isn't enough money to do that? Or
yes, that's the CEO's prerogative.
But it looks like we're requesting him to actually identify, even if there isn't
and the CEO could come back and say, I haven't found any, and that's fine. Sorry, Councillor Hannon and Councillor Lawrence, are you happy to accept this as sorry, Councillor Hannon, yep.
Sorry, I just want to ask a question. Look, yeah, I appreciate the comments CEO's just made. I wanted to ask the question of what's the consequence for the budget going out tonight. Obviously, we've added further expense than savings found. Is that essentially, for now, for the draft budget, is it basically to reduce the operating surplus forecast for the end of the year, and then we come back to that for the final budget? Is it correct to say that? Or what is the effective?
Through Mayor, it's your judgment, councillors. I think you're going out to consultation. You're going out to consultation on an operating projects budget, which is 100 more than is in your financial plan. That's fine. And you've asked me to find ways to come back and see if I can find that 100K before you adopt the final budget. I think the bigger problem is if you adopt a budget that's outside your long-term financial plan. So I think for consultation purposes, it's clear that there's lots of things you want to do, and we can hear community feedback on that. I think what's important is when you come and adopt the final budget, that you've got a balanced budget, and we can look for other options for you, given that some of the options that we provided were not acceptable to council tonight. So I think for a consultation, it's okay, but I think we can note that in the consultation materials that we will need to balance this in the final budget.
Thank you. Councillor Hannon and Councillor Lawrence, are you happy to accept the amendment from Councillor? Not happy? Okay, that's fine. Councillor McCarthy, do you have a seconder for the Councillor Rennie? Thank you. Councillor McCarthy, do you want to speak to this? And conscious that we're almost on 9, so if we could move quickly through this, that would be great.
Mayor, I'll be very quick, and I would just say that this is not the first time that this council has gone out with a budget where it has identified additional operational projects or items it wishes to include at the draft stage. And the wording...
Sorry, Councillor McCarthy, we need a time extension. Can we get a time extension of 30 minutes? Councillor McCarthy, seconded by Councillor Rennie. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Councillor McCarthy, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Really just to say this is not the first time we've done this. In fact, I can recall at least 2 or 3 budgets in my time on this council where we have had a very similar line included on the draft budget night, and we have always found those operational efficiencies. We've often had good news between now and the final budget, and I have every expectation that as a team of management and councillors, we can find a way to identify those savings or efficiencies. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak as seconder? No. Any speakers in opposition? Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, I think, well, councillors here, through the Mayor, Mayor Newton, I think councillors here have a fair amount of experience on budgets. Can you hear that? A fair amount of experience on budgets. And we're drafting a budget to go to our community to say, within the constraints of our capital works being reduced greatly, I think less than 61 million spread over 3 years, that is never going to appear. We should stay the course and actually draft a budget so people know what's in and what's out. We've just gone through a kind of value exercise there of what goes in and what goes out, what's important, what's not. And I don't think it's acceptable to throw the last 100,000 of our responsibility of an operational budget. Operational budgets are about in our power to set, and we should be owning that last $100,000 and putting it clearly to the community. Otherwise, what's the point? We're going to be out there saying, oh, this is the budget, give or take 100 grand. And what is that message in terms of financial responsibility? I don't think it's correct. I think we should have another 15 minutes and identify the 100,000 here.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers to the item? No, we'll put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Hanning, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Greco, Councillor Williams and Councillor Lawrence. All those abstaining? Councillor Demetriadis. That amendment is passed. So I'm just going to check governance advice if we can move the rest. Hang on. Yeah, councillors, I'd like to move the rest of this as we're on 902. So we've got 10, 11, 12 and 13. And is there a 14? It goes down to 16. Yeah, so I'd like, unless there's an exception, I'd like to move 13 to 16 together. Is there any ones that people want to pull out? No. Okay, so councillors, we're voting on between 13 and 16. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So I believe that, do we need to vote on the whole thing? Thank you. Can I clarify, do we need to vote now on the whole thing, or have we completed the item?
Through you, Mayor. In terms of, can you just go to F, please, Nick? In terms of pension concession of under F, I think that as a result of previous decision, it's gone to $200 now. Is that correct, Rachel?
So I agree. I think the figure in those two items there need to be 200.
Thank you. To reflect the previous decision.
Great. Then I will call the vote again, since that's had a change since we saw it. So councillors, I will just call that again, noting that F is 200 rather than 150. So I'm just calling the vote for this again. So all those in...
If I may,
yes.
Sorry, clarification. Because we haven't spoken in relation to the whole budget, do we get an opportunity to do that or not?
Councillors, I did say that I would give people an opportunity to speak to substantive, but I don't think we have time. So unless anyone really wants to speak to it, we have 12 items left and we have 55 minutes. So does anyone want to speak to it? We have 12 items to go, councillors.
Mayor, I think it would
Councillor
be remiss.
McCarthy.
It would be remiss, and I'll just keep this to 10 seconds. It would be remiss of us to not thank the officers for all of their work in getting us to this stage tonight. I know that was the sentiment of the mover and seconder, but I think it's really important for us to reinforce that at this point in time, to thank the officers for all the work they've done with us to get us to this point, not just the officers that have obviously joined us here in the room tonight, but all the organisation as a whole, and also to thank the community that will have the opportunity to participate in the consultation ahead. So I'll end it there, Mayor, and just a note of gratitude for their patience with us and obviously the work ahead as well.
Thank you. I really echo those sentiments. This is, I think the process worked really well. It's taken a bit of time. Councillor Williams, did you want to round
just
us off?
to echo also my fellow councillor, but this is the draft budget. It's going to community consultation. We're going to get that consultation come back to us. We will have obviously further amendments, other winnings hopefully for KP. That would be great. So which would also make changes to the upcoming budget. So this is not for the financial side of things that we're not endorsing. We're actually only endorsing a draft budget for community to look at it. So the community will then give us the feedback, and then from that feedback we will look at it again on the 24th of June.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. I'm going to close debate there.
Just, if I may, 30 seconds. Look, I'm going to be supporting the draft budget, and again, it's a draft budget that goes out to community consultation. I think there are a lot of good things in there. There are some things that I was not happy with. I'm disappointed that the RLC, the Reservoir Leisure Centre, was not considered. So I'm hoping that will come back to us at the end of June. But I'm really happy that we've been able to increase the pensioner concession from $150 to $200, something that we've been battling for a couple of years, if not more than a decade. So I'm glad that councillors have seen fit to do that. So, and also thank the officers for their efforts.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. We're now voting on the substantive, the rest of the item. All those in favour? Great, that's carried unanimously. Councillors, we have 12 items to go. So my expectation is that we will spend no more than 4 minutes on each item if we can. So councillors, let's go straight on to 9.3, the draft 24-25 council plan action plan. Please reduce your questions. We have a big agenda to get through. I would also encourage perhaps only the movers speak. Seconder, please reserve your right if you can. Do we have any questions on 9.3? No. Do we have a mover? Councillor McCarthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Williams, I saw your hand first. Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the council plan action plan?
I'll make it very brief, Mayor. This is the draft action plan for consultation. I would encourage community members, if they have the opportunity, to consider the items that we have listed in here. This is the last action plan, and it's an annual process that we take, which supports the delivery of our 4-year council plan. So this is really where this council has the opportunity to commit and where necessary also identify things that shouldn't proceed in the final year that might have been identified at the start of the council planning process. We take this process seriously. It has been in place now for a couple of council terms. I would note that this will come back to us on the 24th of June. I encourage community members to make submissions, and we'll just note that there are some significant commitments that the organisation has proposed as part of our final 4-year program, some of which are picked up in the budget just considered, and also some of which are not budget items but are significant policy, procedural and innovation items that should be considered. And lastly, Mayor, I'll just note that we have a huge and an area of great interest, I know to many of us, a huge initiative to support our vulnerable communities, particularly those experiencing fuel poverty, and of course the rejuvenation and removal of gas from any council assets, which I think is a really important process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak? Thank you. Any further speakers to the item? No. Councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll go on to 9.4, the draft leasing and licensing policy relating to neighbourhood houses. Councillor Rennie, would you like to declare a conflict?
Mayor, thank you. As already indicated, I work in a neighbourhood house which is subject to this policy, so I will declare a conflict and leave until you've finished.
Thank you. We'll just ask you to leave the chamber. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item? No. Do we have a mover of the motion? Councillor Dimitriadis, and seconder, Councillor Williams. Councillor Dimitriadis, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Here in Darebin, we are home to many wonderful neighbourhood houses that are run by hardworking staff and volunteers. Oh, I can hear my echo. So I'll start again. So here in Darebin, we are home to many wonderful neighbourhood houses that are run by hardworking staff and volunteers wanting to make Darebin a better place to live. The services they provide are important for many vulnerable residents, those wanting to upskill and people simply looking to connect with one another. Currently, many more residents are relying on these wonderful services than ever before, with the rising cost of living, and we as a council should be fully supporting that work. Thank you to all the neighbourhood houses who have reached out to us about the importance of having contractual certainty with Darebin Council in the years to come. I will be voting for this recommendation to ensure that our dedicated neighbourhood houses continue to provide wonderful services with certainty. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schriders. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak a second up?
I just quickly want to say a big thank you to all our community houses out there and all the work that they have done. I've engaged in many times with them, whether it's to do with Secretive Santa, all the way through to casual care, which I brought on to council 12 years ago, and apologies for all the angst that this might have caused, but this policy will put in place to ensure that that will have an ongoing future for a wonderful relationship between council and all our community houses.
Thank you. Well said, Councillor Williams. Are there any further speakers to the item? No. Councillors will put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Oh, sorry. That's Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Hannan, Councillor... That's carried unanimously. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And yes, thank you very much to the neighbourhood houses for bearing with us on this item and getting to a place which I think we all agreed on. We will go to 9.5, the contract award. And sorry, I'll wait for Councillor Brennan to come back. Thank you. Thank you. We are on 9.5, the contract award, provision of hard waste collection services. Any questions on this item? No. Do we have a motion? Councillor Greco and seconded by Councillor McCarthy. Oh, sorry, Councillor McCarthy.
Assuming Councillor Greco is moving with the confidential items included as part of the motion.
Councillor Greco, are you moving the contract award as listed in the confidential section? Yes. Yes, that's fine. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the item? Would you like to speak to the item?
Fill in the details and put those up for us in relation to who we're awarding the contract to.
I think we can if there's no financial amounts put to it.
Look, I'll speak in favour of it. This is for our hard waste collection, our annual hard waste collection, and this tender is to ensure that happens this year as planned. And as we know, our hard waste collection that we do annually is very popular. Many of our residents look forward to it. Not only residents, but also it's almost gained a good community spirit out there in relation to the recycling of material that occurs as a result of the hard waste collection that goes out annually. And so this contract, this tender enables that to happen this year. I note, and this is only a personal observation, that the council has decided to not continue in future years and trialling a book system, which is unfortunate. But at least we ensure that this year will be done, and that in the form that it has been done before, in terms of the bulk hard waste collection that occurs on an annual basis. So I think the report's self-explanatory, and hopefully we can get this happening as has been mentioned in the report by June, July this year.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the item?
Thanks, Mayor. Only just to add to Councillor Greco's coverage about what the item is, that the award of the contract following a robust process as per Council's procurement policy is proposed to go to WM Waste Management Services Proprietary Limited. There are also references to the financial amounts included. I would draw Council's particular attention to item 5 to understand the size and scale of this contract, which is in the many millions and does take us across multiple years. I would also just note that this matter is a matter which, of course, is one that we often don't necessarily deal with we only deal with once within a council term, and there is a proposed change to the process as Councillor Greco has outlined. I'll end it there, Mayor, and thank you to the officers for their administration of the process.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Are there any further speakers? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We will now go on to 9.6. That's the contract award for John Hall Reserve. Do we have any questions? No. Do we have a mover for the item? Councillor Lawrence?
Yes.
Sorry, I'll just seek a seconder. Councillor Rennie. Councillor Lawrence, please go ahead.
Yes. Just briefly, because of the time and we have got things to debate, this is just a contract which dovetails with our budget, one of our budget commitments, which is in the north of the city, and updates some fairly old, dated infrastructure, which is named after carries the name of former Mayor of Preston, John Hall, former Commissioner of Brimbanker too, I think, and other contributions in local government. That's the contract. So we are delivering already with our budget.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak to the item? Great. Any further speakers? No. Councillors, will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We will go on to the 9.7 governance report. Have we got any questions on the item? No. Have we got a mover for the item? Councillor Rennie, have we got a seconder? Councillor Messina. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak to the governance report?
Sorry, Matt, I'll keep it exceptionally brief. This month's governance report is actually shorter than usual, and the items are ones that we're familiar with, including the activity reports of mayors and councillors, minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, public questions taken on notice, a noting that a councillor was on leave, and our action tonight is simply to note it. So I think we could save our debate for other items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Messina, would you like to speak to the item? Perfect. Any further speakers? No. I'll put the governance item to the vote. All those in favour? Great, that's carried unanimously. We are now on to notices of motion. We'll go to 11.1, safety concerns, upgrades to Jones and Collins Street, Thornbury. Would you like... sorry, Councillor Dimitriadis.
You missed 10, which is items to be tabled.
Sorry, I wasn't aware there are any items to be tabled. Did you have an item?
Yes, we were asked to table a request from Farmwall and Evolution Emotive from 2 Wingrove Street, Alphington, to grant the licence extension, but I wasn't given a response about it. So they have a fair chance of applying for the EOI process.
Sorry, Councillor Dimitriadis, I believe that would be urgent business. We're not at urgent business.
Oh, sorry, it's not the urgent business. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Yep, Councillor...
Through you, Mayor.
Sorry, Peter.
I believe Councillor Demetrius asked us if she could table an item. I was pretty sure we'd provided advice back to you, Councillor Demetriadis, but I'll just ask Anna if she's able to assist. I think we did receive the request. I was of the view that we'd advised you. I think Rachel, did you provide advice? We can provide the advice now anyway.
So certainly my recollection was that we had. Essentially, the advice that came through at the time was that there isn't a mechanism for tabling something of that nature, and so our governance team looked at the various mechanisms in our governance rules by which something might be lodged, and it's not a mechanism that exists in our governance rules. So the answer is it's not possible to table something.
We'll double check. Thanks. So I believe the governance advice is that we can't table that item, but I would imagine that it could be put forward in the urgent business item. I'll just clarify.
Through you, Mayor, I'm just trying to recall the request from Councillor Dimitriadis. Apologies, Councillor Dimitriadis, that we didn't get that advice back to you. We should have. My understanding was there was one governance question, but two, there was a question around not compromising the EOI by tabling it, a request of this nature in the council meeting. So we are currently in an EOI process, and to table a request for somebody who's likely to submit to that EOI process would, in my view, and I'll give it as my view, not be appropriate because it's putting forward a request that should properly come through the current EOI process into a council meeting. So
Sure.
I'm
So-
doing this
I
on the
think-
fly a bit, and I'm happy to take it on notice for you a little bit, but that was my concern with the request when I saw it, and I thought we'd given advice back to you to that effect.
I think that advice is quite key, Councillor Fitzgerald. So I think the opportunity
sorry,
for anything
Mayor.
like this would be urgent business.
Oh, sorry, Mayor, no, that's a different item. This one was, sorry, I don't believe we are in an expression of interest process, and it was to have an extension to the licence, so it had nothing to do with the EOI
So,
process.
Councillor Demetriou, before you go on, I thought this was a process question, but it seems to be a little bit more. So I might ask Councillor McCarthy to exit the room just before we continue. Thank you, just with the conflict.
I'd also have a general question.
Please wait for Councillor Demetriou to exit. Sorry, for Councillor McCarthy to exit the room. So, Councillor Demetriou, what is your request?
I also have just a general question. We just heard that we can't table items in a council meeting because it's not in the governance rules. So why do we always have items to be tabled in our agenda if nothing ever gets tabled?
Councillor Demetriou, I think that's a question that can be taken on notice. So we have 6 motions to get through. I believe we have an item of urgent business that you're wanting to put forward, and we have a confidential item. So I believe that a process question like that can be taken on notice. So should we move on to the notices of motion 11.1, safety concerns? Would you like to move the item?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Does Councillor McCarthy have to come back in?
Yes, could we call back in Councillor McCarthy? Thank you. Yes, I'll just pause. Thank you. So Councillor Demetriou is moving the motion, safety concerns upgrades to Jones and Collins Street, Thornbury. Do we have a seconder for the notice of motion? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Demetriou, would you like to speak to the notice of motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So over the past few years, residents have raised complaints with councillors and local members of Parliament regarding road safety concerns around Jones Street and Collins Street in Thornbury, particularly about safety concerns for students attending Thornbury High School due to dangerously speeding vehicles. Since these are council-owned roads, money was set aside in the 23-24 budget for quick safety upgrades to the Jones and Collins Streets areas, and according to the residents, they were promised small wins such as physical restrictions to stop cars speeding down the street, better located and more signage in the area, including the installation of wrong way, go back signs and changing give way signs to stop signs. However, to date, residents have not seen any of these works in the area and are asking whether the quick wins will be implemented this financial year as promised. So therefore, this motion just calls for a report to be provided at the next council meeting on the status of these upgrades, including but not limited to the type of work to be done and when that work will be completed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Demetriou. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to the notice of motion?
Through you, Mayor Newton, I think Councillor Demetriou just covered the issues in some detail.
Thank you. Councillor
Mayor,
Reddy?
I have an amendment. I circulated it to all councillors last night. It's fairly simple. I'm hoping the staff can...
Thank you. Can we get the amendment on screen, please, governance team?
It just takes into account the officer advice we've received. I'm hoping it might be acceptable to the mover and seconder.
Yes, I remember seeing this. Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder?
No, sorry, Mayor. I mean, I'm happy to accept some of it, but I don't understand why some of it's crossed off too.
It's just a yes or no, Councillor Demetriou, so it's a no. So, Councillor Rennie, you've got an amendment. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Messina. Councillor Rennie, did you want to speak to the amendment?
Thank you. Very briefly, we've received advice about why these works have been delayed, and that relates to statewide delays in signage because of contractors in the market. I think it's really important that we note publicly our commitment to seeing this, sorry. Thank you. Publicly note and reaffirm our commitment to delivering these interventions and undertake to prioritise them as soon as the signage is available, and I think that that's what this addition does. I also don't feel it's particularly appropriate in a motion to put notes about what might have happened according to residents. I think that we can streamline this, and I think that this will help our community understand without requiring our staff to do a report, which is unnecessary given that we've already had information about the delay.
Thank you. Councillor Messina, would you like to speak as seconder?
Simply that we've received officer's advice and it's per what's being done in the amendment by Councillor Rennie.
Thank you. I'll put the... Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Did anyone want to speak in opposition to the amendment?
Yes, I wanted to speak on this motion. Just quickly, the statewide shortage of street signs is one thing, but there's also things that are going to happen in this area, such as lines on the road as well that haven't been done. So it's not just the street side shortage that's causing the delay. So I guess initially I was just wanting to understand why why this had taken so long, and the community were just asking because they were promised this before the last budget was going to be, when the last budget was approved. So while I will be supporting this motion, I just wanted to make clear that it's not just the street signage that delayed this. I don't understand why the lines on the road and the rest of the stuff, the crossings, were not taken into consideration as well.
So, Councillor Demetriadis, are you speaking for or against the amendment?
I'll support it anyway.
Speaking for the amendment. Okay, thank you. Councillors, we're now voting on the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, so that becomes the substantive item. Are there any further speakers to the substantive? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll go to 11.2, the Nappy Collective. Councillor Demetriadis, did you want to move that notice of motion? Also, just noting, we will need, actually I think, should I do that now? Yes, thank you. Councillor Greco's moving the extension of time. We'll go through to 10. Councillor Williams seconding. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Sorry, Councillor Demetriadis, you're moving your notice of motion. Have we got a seconder for the notice of motion on the Nappy Collective? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Demetriadis, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. So unfortunately, around 1 in 10 families cannot afford an adequate number of nappies for their babies and are forced to make the difficult choice to go without essentials such as food and medicine. I've seen it firsthand, working in the emergency department where the cost of living crisis has left 1 in 6 children living in poverty across Australia and approximately 1,500 families experiencing nappy stress. And unfortunately, these figures are expected to rise. This motion is calling for council to support Darebin families in need. It is simple, very low cost and an effective way for council to support families without doing much at all. We just need to register to have nappy collection boxes in Darebin buildings, such as childcare centres, neighbourhood houses and libraries, and all the donated nappies will be regularly collected by the Nappy Collective organisation, who then collaborate with other organisations such as St Kilda Mums to deliver the nappies locally to families in crisis. I really hope all councillors will support this motion to support those families in need in our areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to the notice of motion?
No, Mayor Newton, Councillor Demetriadis has covered it in depth.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers to the item? Councillor Reddy.
Mayor, I have a slight amendment.
Thank you. Can we get that on screen, please? Thank you. Is that your amendment?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder?
No, it isn't.
No. Okay. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Hannan. Councillor Reddy, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure, I'll keep it brief. I'd like to thank Councillor Demetriadis for bringing this motion before us. I think we're all very keen to see that families in Darebin have all the services that they require. And the reason I've put in an amendment is because I think it's worth noting that our team, our maternal and child health teams and our children's services teams already have very robust processes in place to assist families. I know from personal experience when I had a homeless young mum and preschooler at my house for 18 months that she walked in the door of maternal and child health and within days had a delivery to her door, not only of nappies, but of other essential items that she needed for her toddler. And that occurs because council has existing relationships with Big Group Hug and St Kilda Mums. Those organisations work in partnership with the Nappy Collective, but I think out of respect for the organisations that we have existing relationships with, it's worth noting that in this amendment, whilst also providing opportunity to have more collection points, because I do think there's a lot of generosity in our community and many people would be very happy to donate. So this motion makes clear that council is happy to fund up to 10 additional collection points at $80 each, and they could be either in council facilities or in community organisations that are appropriate, whilst also recognising and valuing the existing relationships that we have. I hope that people will support the motion and then we can, I've no doubt, have a unanimous vote on the Nappy Collective. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hannan, would you like to speak to the amendment?
I reserve my right. Thank you.
Sure. Have we got any further speakers to the amendment? Councillor Dimitriadis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually perplexed as to why this amendment is even coming. It basically achieves the same outcome as my original amendment, which was to sign up to have at least 10 located nappy collection bins around Darebin. I made the point that, you know, we do support St Kilda Mums, and the Nappy Collective actually also work with organisations such as the St Kilda Mums. Yet here we have an amendment that really isn't an amendment. It's pretty much the same as what the intent of my motion is. So I will be supporting this.
Sorry, Councillor Richards, did you say will or won't? Will, thank you. Are there any further speakers to the item? No. Okay, we'll go to the vote on the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Any further speakers on what's now the substantive? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We will now go on to 11.3, resurface the entrance to the Pitcher Park Oval. Can I check? I'll just double check governance on this because we have discussed the entrance to the Pitcher Park Oval already tonight. I'll just double check. Thank you. Councillor Dimitriadis, you're moving the notice of motion. Do we have a seconder for Pitcher Park notice of motion? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Dimitriadis, would you like to speak to your item?
Sorry, Mayor, I wanted to move it with removing the words in point 7, listing the cost of resurfacing the gravel entrance, because that's actually already been given to us since I submitted this notice of motion.
Okay, can we get that on screen, please? Thank you. So you want to remove the words listing the cost of resurfacing the gravel entrance?
Yeah, that's fine. So what's on the screen is okay.
We need a point of clarification though. What would the report be about?
So it's basically just providing a statement as to when this particular project is scheduled to be delivered by council. There is a schedule though.
I think it's when council resolves to, but let me seek advice.
Through you, Mayor, I just think we need to just get the wording right first. So just delete the word to, thanks, governance. Mayor, we can do a report. It'll be a very short report if that's council's will, although I believe it could be dealt with through an operational request, but as we've accepted the NOM, I'll leave it to council whether you want a report or not.
Thank you. So line 7 becomes receives a report prior to the budget being adopted, indicating when it can be delivered.
Yes, so my understanding is that officers have a long-term plan of when items should be, are going to be coming up for council to work on and deliver it. So I'm wondering when this particular project will be delivered.
And you want a report about
Yes,
the
or a
project will be
statement.
delivered?
I mean, I'm happy for a statement.
Through Mayor, it won't be delivered if it's not in the forward capital program, and I believe it's the resurfacing of this entrance is not, because it's at the standard. I think if you want a useful report, Councillor Dimitriadis, you could ask for a report on the project timeframe in the event that council approve funding for this. That might be a better thing, because if you ask when it's going to be delivered, it won't be delivered till it's in the budget. But if you were to amend 7 to say you'd like a report on the project delivery timeframe for this project, once council agree to fund it, then we could provide that to you in terms of how long it would take to design it, scope it, procure it and do the work, if that's what you're after.
Thank you. Is that your intention, Councillor Dimitriadis? Okay.
So, if I can help you, when the project can be delivered and project timeframes, once council approves the funding. And you can just take the last four or five words out there. I think that would meet your needs, Councillor Dimitriadis.
Yes, can I just ask, so the 10-year program that we've got currently doesn't list this project, is that right?
I'll ask Rachel. I don't believe it does, but...
I don't believe I've got up-to-date condition data that would let us plan that far out. So I think we're working just ahead on that asset class. Give us another 4 months and I'm expecting to have the suite of data available.
Through you, Mayor, I know I'm worried about time, but we're working on the basis of the officer's advice that says these car parks, which are entrances which are gravel, we believe are safe. So I was assuming that under a number of these, I was assuming that there wouldn't be a plan in the forward plan to upgrade them all to tarmac based on that advice.
That is correct.
Thank you. Yes, what's the question?
How many sporting ovals do we have in Darebin, approximately? 30, 40?
Let's take it on notice.
We're going to put up notice of motions for 30, 40 sporting clubs that want to know when their projects are going to be on a whimsical...
Through you, Mayor, 53.
53.
Thank you. Councillors, I think we're getting short of time, so Councillor Dimitriadis, are you happy with point 7? Great. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Lawrence, you seconded? Great. Councillor Dimitriadis, please go ahead.
Sure, and just on the outset, I wanted to say that this isn't just a car park, it's actually the entrance to the Oval, and there's been lots of injuries that have occurred. Residents have asked for these for many years, and they've been contacting, expressing concerns about the gravel surface at the entrance to Pitcher Park in Alphington. For the last 3 budgets, I've requested support from councillors to fix this issue, but unfortunately this safety issue has not been supported and has not been included in any budget despite the many safety concerns raised. The entrance to Pitcher Park Oval is the central thoroughfare for access to both pavilions and spectator areas, and this is the area that paramedics access when they need to attend to injured personnel on the field. Because this entrance is completely gravel, it has resulted in many serious injuries and hospitalisations of players and spectators. Only last footy season, various accidents occurred due to the gravel surface, including an elderly spectator needing medical attention and an all-abilities player from the Parkside Football Club who was hospitalised with a concussion before running onto the oval. These incidents were reported to councillors and council, and still the unsafe gravel exists. So I think it's an important issue that needs to be addressed. Pitcher Park in Alphington is home to Parkside Sports Club, which has over 1,000 playing members of football, cricket and netball, and 2 all-abilities teams and hundreds of spectators on games days that use this area. Now more than ever, with the beginning of the new footy season, the club coaches, players, spectators and the general public are seriously concerned about everyone's safety at this park. Please, councillors, listen to the community. This is a safety issue that has been unfairly dismissed for years, despite the many reports being given to us of falls on gravel. We need to resurface this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dimitriadis. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Councillor Dimitriadis for bringing this local sporting issue to the chamber. Yes, we've been through partially this debate already through the budget. We've been through it in a different budget. It just seems to be different people vote against it, and that's the way it goes. Just keep soldiering on.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? Oh, sorry, Councillor Messina.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be on the Audit and Risk Committee, and during that committee we get OH&S reports. That OH&S reports would highlight any crisis mitigations in our community that should address items where there's many accidents. I've yet to see that in terms of any risk mitigation strategies. If there was something that would be highlighted in terms of likelihood, frequency of risk, it would come to the Audit and Risk Committee. I've not seen it. There are 53 sporting ovals in our community. I think NOMs are important, yes, but I think this can be dealt with more simplistic way, rather than having an officer spend three days to produce a report or to grandstand in this chamber. Yes, I know Councillor Dimitriadis is very passionate about this, but I'm equally passionate about the sporting clubs in my ward and all of your wards. I'm sure there are many that needs this to be done. I don't think this is a way to do it, and surely I would actually ask the Audit and Risk Committee to produce a report to address some of those concerns, and that maybe we can vote on evidence outcomes rather than grandstanding.
No pun intended with grandstands. I'll close the debate there. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Williams. All those against? Councillor Hannon, Councillor Reddy, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. That motion is lost. Councillors, we're very short on time. I believe, Councillor Greco, are you withdrawing 11.4 participatory budgeting? Thank you. We'll go to 11.5 Preston Market. Councillor Greco, are you moving that notice of motion?
Yes, I am, Mayor. There was just an inclusion of a little word that I sent around.
Thank you. And Councillor Messina is the seconder. Councillor Greco, would you like to...
Can we bring it up so that people can see it?
Yes, we'll just wait for it to be on screen.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's right. It's got the word traders in there. And
traders,
can we go down to...
Sure.
Yes, got the word traders.
Yes, that's fine. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the
Yeah, look, I'll
motion?
speak to this. Look, it's fairly self-explanatory. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Chris Erlison and from the Save the Preston Market action group that is here tonight to... I think this is the item of interest for him. Look, we have the state government has, as we know, approved the planning controls for the market. The planning controls go to saving a substantial part of the market and also applying a heritage overlay over the market. And also it sets certain development limitations that can occur on the market. One of the things that the planning controls is silent on is what level of community consultation or input that the traders have, the council has and the community has in regards to a future development plan that could be put forward by the owners of the market who are SALTA. So the planning controls, my reading of them, and I've asked officers about them, and also I believe their reading of them, that the planning controls are unclear. As the Minister is the responsible authority in relation to any future, the approval of any development plans and the approval of any permits in regards to the site, we need to get some clarity about what opportunities there will be for traders, for the community, and also for council to have input into any development plans that are put forward by the owners. So what this motion clearly does is to write to the Minister so that we can get some information back so that the traders, the community, the council know where they stand in the event that a development plan is put forward by the owners. We know that the owners are, from what I understand, that that they will in future put some sort of development plan to the minister. So it'll be good that becomes public information and an opportunity for the community to have input. It's important that we do that because it's been a massive community campaign to save the Preston market, and we need to see this through to the end, and we need to see any future development plans that go to the minister become public, so again the community can have a say in relation to what actually gets developed there in line with the planning controls that have been established by the minister. So it's simply writing to the minister, getting that clarification so that we can communicate to the traders, to the Save the Preston Market Action Group, and also for council to know what input it can have when a future development plan gets presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Messina, would you like to speak to the item?
I want to say this journey began a long time ago. It's gone silent. We haven't forgotten. I want to thank Councillor Greco, and I just saw Chris in the audience too. I haven't seen you, hey. And I think it's really important to say is we've been quiet, but doesn't mean we have lost our passion, Mayor. We're still there and we're waiting. And I know my council term is finishing, but that doesn't mean we're not going to be on the outskirts still pushing it through. So, Minister, we haven't forgotten.
Thank you, Councillor Messina. Any further speakers? No, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll go on to 11.6, motion for submission to the NGA of local governments regarding the conflict in Gaza. Councillor Greco, would you like to put forward your motion?
Mayor Newton, I have a revised motion that I'd like to put up, which actually tries to incorporate the amendment that was going to be proposed by Councillor Rennie, and also incorporate some of the suggestions that you made to me
Have you
earlier
circulated
today.
the motion?
Sorry?
Have you circulated the...
I have circulated it. If you have a look at your emails, you should have it there. And I've circulated it, I believe, to the officers also.
So you circulated it at 9:34 p.m.
Yeah, I circulated the first version earlier this afternoon that incorporated your changes, Mayor Newton. And upon seeing tonight the changes that were suggested by Councillor Rennie, I've also tried to insert those into the motion.
Councillor Greco, I haven't seen this because I've been conducting the meeting, so I think give us an opportunity to read it.
Mayor Newton, the motion is what was originally there that I originally had put forward as part of the council papers, and it adds at point number 1 at the bottom. It basically adds Councillor Rennie's proposed amendment to this motion, which is A, consult with Darebin Interfaith Advisory Committee and other relevant stakeholders to further update and inform Darebin's position on this motion. B, consult with the Darebin Interfaith Advisory Committee and Welcoming Cities Reference Group and other relevant stakeholders on any other support which might assist people in Darebin who have been impacted by this conflict. And C, makes available up to $5,000 to implement any advice that flows from this consultation on ways in which we can support communities in Darebin who have been impacted by this conflict. And then point number 5, which is the point that you suggested to me earlier this morning, Councillor Mayor Newton, is 5, notes that the situation has changed since Mary Beck submitted their motion, and that $6 million of UNRWA's funding has been reinstated, and notes that even $12 million is inadequate for the scale of the crisis, with the Australian Council of Trade Unions, the ACTU, calling for $100 million in humanitarian assistance as of 22nd of April. Council instructs its delegates to ALGA to act in accordance with this more recent information following consultation with the Darebin Interfaith Committee and other stakeholders. So they're the changes. that are included in the motion, and that's the revised motion that I'm proposing to put forward.
Councillor Greco, I'm going to accept the alternative motion that you want to put forward because of time. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Lawrence. Okay. Councillor Greco, please be brief. Oh, sorry, Councillor, you've got a question? Councillor Hannan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for the question, but yes, also just received this. I just wanted to check that this is within the governance rules, given that there's now a total of $10,000 proposed in this NOM. My understanding was in the governance rules, a NOM can propose no more than $5,000.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, that's correct.
And
it should be either or.
And also, I don't understand the last point. It just says link to the statement. Is that? Are we noting that? Are we acting on that?
Yeah, look, so Councillor Hannan has a point. So currently our governance rules say that notices of motion can allocate up to $5,000. This currently allocates 10. So let me just check governance advice. Councillor Greco, you can't move a notice of motion that has $10,000.
No, so therefore, really, that point number 3 should therefore be removed because now it's taken up by point C. So there's a doubling up in relation to that. Yeah. Look, I fully understand, and I've had discussions with the officers that it's up to $5,000.
Okay.
And so that's clear. It's just that now there's a doubling up as a result of...
You want to move that you sent through at 9:34 p.m. Has $10,000 in it, so we have to remove point 3. Councillors, we're very close to time.
Yeah, well,
so
I'll be removing, Mayor Newton, if I may. So because of Councillor Rennie's, I'm trying to incorporate Councillor Rennie's, so therefore I'm removing point number 3. And so as a result of incorporating point C.
Okay, Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sorry?
Would you like to speak to the item?
Sure. Look, councillors, I won't keep you long on this. I mean, people obviously have been following the news and following the events that have been occurring. And I'd like to thank the Mayor and Councillor Rennie for also making these suggestions in order to improve the motion. This motion, there are 4 parts of it. The first part is in relation to ALGA. ALGA has a deadline of tomorrow in relation to getting motions from Council to ALGA for the conference that will occur in July this year. So this motion is important that it gets decided on tonight so that we can make that submission to ALGA. The second part of the motion, it talks about endorsing the $5,000 to faith groups or cultural groups or refugee groups in order to assist refugees that are coming out of Gaza and arriving in Australia. And I believe that some are also hitting areas around Darebin. So in order to to provide some assistance to them, because one of the criticisms that we've had is that councils have been very vocal on this issue, but are not actually offering much material support. So here is an opportunity for us to offer some material support as the Council of Merripack has been doing. The other portion of this motion talks about council signing a statement which has been signed by over 300 current and past parliamentarians and many councillors and mayors across Australia, and we've got MPs such as Adam Band. We've got MPs like former MPs like Bob Brown, Bob Carr, who was a former foreign minister. Gareth Evans is also a former foreign minister, and so we've got a statement there which has been circulated. It's a fairly moderate statement that makes a call on ceasefire in Gaza and how the Australian government and the Australian community can actually assist in doing that. Also, another component of the motion is to suggest to ALGA, as it was done a few years ago, to have a speaker from the Palestinian either diplomats or a representative from the Palestinian organisations in Australia to speak at the Alga conference, much like the ambassador for the Ukraine spoke at the Alga conference, where nearly 1,000 councillors that were present unanimously endorsed the call that was made by the Ukraine ambassador. So it's basically offering that sort of assistance to a Palestinian representative. And finally, I'll just make this thing. Many people say, what's council got to do with this? It's been the very mobility of councils to act on this, which has actually changed community views and also the federal government's attitudes towards moving towards closer to a ceasefire, calling for an effective and a permanent ceasefire. So councils have played a very instrumental role in shaping community attitudes nationally in relation to this very important issue. So I urge councillors to follow our sister council in Maryback and to endorse this motion so we can move forward in relation to this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak as seconder?
Just briefly, Mayor Newton, yes, thanks for all the councillors who've put their input into this in terms of making this an inclusive conversation. We're in our community's been deeply affected by a global conflict that's incredibly brutal, and because of social media is delivered and traumatises a number of parts of our community every day here. So it's a unique situation and one that we need to raise the voice of humanity and compassion so that their ceasefire is actually upheld and that a two-state solution is actually followed up.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the amendment. I've circulated it to all councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. We'll just get that on screen. Councillors, I believe that we can finish the business by 10:15, so I'd like an extension of time to 10:15. Councillor McCarthy, seconded by Councillor Greco. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillor Rennie, is that your amendment?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that acceptable? Sorry, is that acceptable to the mover and seconder? No. Thank you. Have we got a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Messina. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Make no mistake, the words that Councillor Greco took from my amendment and incorporated into his did not respect or honour my amendment in any way. I'm actually really incredibly disappointed this has come back onto the agenda. I would have thought that as a council we would have learnt something over the last 5 months about the harm caused by putting this type of thing on our agenda to begin with. This is the 5th time a motion relating to this subject has come onto the agenda, and that's just not appropriate in a council context. It's caused division in this council chamber just as it's caused division in our community, and our role as council is to promote social inclusion and social harmony and to listen deeply to the voices of our community, all of the voices. So I'm proposing an amendment that winds us back to perhaps what we should have thought of doing in the first place, which is to understand and listen to our advisory committees. We nominate and choose skilled members of the community for a purpose, and that is to be able to give us some guidance and advice, which we may choose to follow or not to follow, but we have an opportunity now to do that and to go and ask the Darebin Interfaith Advisory Committee to speak to the Welcoming Cities Committee and to get a deeper understanding of how we can actually affect real, tangible change for people in our community who have been impacted by this conflict. I know for a fact there is not a person around this table that does not want to see an end to this appalling conflict and that does not abhor the violence and the killing and the destruction that is happening. But we do not make that situation better by bringing this conflict to our municipality, and I think we've probably all heard from community members that have been deeply and adversely impacted by our actions as a council. So I'm hoping that this amendment can lead us towards a journey of healing, but also, I would suggest that it would be better if we focused on the things that we can influence, and that is things like how people who are impacted by conflict in our community manage and how we support them. So, councillors, I really commend this to you. I think that it provides an opportunity to wind back some of the damage and to listen to voices in our community who so far have been a bit silenced.
Thank you. Councillor Messina, would you like to add anything further?
No need. Oh, actually, I reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers to the amendment? Councillor Greco?
Look, I'll be speaking against this amendment. I think that this amendment really doesn't go far enough. I've tried to be as inclusive as possible to include point 2, point 3 and point 4 of this amendment incorporated into the motion that I've put forward. And why I can't approve this amendment, because if we vote for this amendment, it would mean that we do not make a submission to the ALGA conference as the Marybeck Council has done. And so that's why I urge councillors not to support this and to support my substantive motion, which incorporates these points but actually goes a bit further. And I'll also make this point, councillors. Just 3 days ago, I just listened to the Secretary-General of Amnesty International, that whilst this is framed in terms of a conflict, what the Secretary-General was saying was, 70% of the infrastructure in Gaza has been destroyed, making strong statements like there's a plethora of human rights violations. So what we're calling about a ceasefire and urging the federal government to call for a ceasefire is about the genocide that is occurring at the moment, recognised by major agencies. That's what we're trying to stop. It's not so much about people trying to frame this in terms of a conflict and the disharmony. When wrong is being acted upon, we need to take a stand. We took a stand in relation to the Ukraine. ALGA took a stand in relation to Ukraine because what was happening was wrong. We need to also urge ALGA, put it to
10 seconds.
To take a stand in relation to what is happening in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lawrence. Conscious we've only got 13 minutes left.
Yes, just briefly, Mayor Newton. Yes, so we've heard about talking about this is traumatising to people. Actually remaining silent about genocide is really traumatising to people in many communities who've faced and survived genocide, not just in Europe. This is the ALGA conference. This is where we take climate change and where we stand with Port Phillip and Yarra and Moreland for progressive politics. It's sometimes a dangerous place. It's sometimes a harsh place and an ignorant place, that conference. Well, this motion is basically saying, let's be silent. Let's be silent at the national body of councils about an international
Mayor,
issue.
point of order.
Thank you. What is your point of order, Councillor Rennie?
10.1 G. In that, I'm not suggesting for a minute that Council not exercise its vote at ALGA. I fully expect that the Council delegates will exercise their vote at ALGA. It's my full expectation that they'll do so following the consultation.
I'll rephrase it. This is about being silent tomorrow when the deadline for actual nominations and for submissions are on. That's even worse. That's an abusive process.
Thank you. I'm going to have to close the debate there. All those in favour of the amendment, that's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy. Oh, sorry. Did you want to... Sorry, Councillor... I'm sorry. Did you want to speak? Sorry, I'm conscious we've only got 11 minutes and we've got 2 items. Sorry, so all those in favour, Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Greco, Councillor Lawrence. All those abstaining? Councillor Dimitriadis and Councillor Williams. So we're now on the substantive item. I'm going to have to go to the vote on this one. So all those in favour of the substantive item. That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Messina, Councillor Newton. All those against? Councillor Greco, all those abstaining. Councillor Demetriadis, Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawrence. Thank you, that motion is passed. So we're now going to urgent business. Is there any urgent business? No. Okay, so we'll go to consideration of reports considered confidential, and we'll need to close the meeting to the public. Councillor McCarthy to move, Councillor Williams to second. All those in favour? That's Councillor Hannan, Councillor Rennie. Oh, sorry. Sorry, are you voting for Councillor Demetriadis, or are you voting against going into confidential? Procedural. So you're voting, okay, sorry, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll now move into confidential. We'll just wait for the staff to leave. Thank you. Should we close?